some organisms change at a faster rate than other organisms. So when we think about mutation is what leads to evolution. So organisms changing over time. Some of them change fast. So walleye, perch, swordfish, tuna, they're all part of that group. Haven't been around as long as sturgeons and gars, but some change slower than others. And so if you were to look at a gar in the fossil record looking the same as what the shape of a gar looks like now, they have a very slow evolutionary rate.
At the same time when there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex on the planet, I could be standing there with my flashlight, shining into a marsh, and I'd be like, holy shit, a gar!
It looks the same as it does now.
The same basic group.
Whereas look what happened to T-Rex. I mean, their pigeons are the,
chickens.
Yeah.
This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
Brought to you by First Light. When I'm hunting, I need gear that won't quit. First Light builds no compromise gear that keeps me in the field longer. No shortcuts, just gear that works. Check it out at firstlight.com. That's FIRSTLITE.com. All right, joined today by Solomon David, the Gar guy, who has a Jurassic Park sticker. See, I was sitting here thinking you were a big Jurassic Park fan.
I mean, I'm in that too, as well.
But then I realized it's Jurassic Park.
Why not both, Steve?
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into this. That's going to be my first question, but I don't want to ask it yet. Solomon David is an aquatic ecologist and assistant professor. Works on fish biodiversity, conservation, science communication, and runs the GarLab. It's like a colloquial term. GarLab focuses on the ecology of migratory and ancient fishes and how that research can help us better understand and conserve aquatic ecosystems. Additional projects involve conservation of Great Lakes migratory fishes. I'm assuming you mean the native ones.
Yeah.
Ancient sport fish, e.g. gars, bowfins. We're going to talk about what that means. We're going to talk about terms. Rough fish, trash fish, how those terms aren't really doing the best. They're doing a little bit of a disservice to some fish species. I'm going to call for, how Brody does the indefensible law thing? I'm going to call for a new law, and I'm going to tell you why people think it's a bad idea, and then I'm going to refute that and explain why it's actually not, why it's good. It'll be, how could people tell the difference? And I'll say,
between a game and
that's what'll happen. And I'll say, I don't know. How can they tell the difference on ducks? Why was that okay? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to use on them people. No one knows what I'm talking about yet because I haven't said it yet.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know where I'm going with this?
It's a fish?
That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. A gar comes into a bar. Bartender says, why the long face?
Classic.
I didn't make that up. It's in my notes. Is that your joke?
Yeah, kind of.
You made that up.
Yeah, for the most part. Other people it's crowdsourcing too. So, people do the puns for me these days, but
got it.
Started off artisanal.
I'm holding in my hand an alligator gar. We're going to talk about alligator gars too. And I read a thing that Corinne put down that I had no idea about. Don't answer this yet. You can answer like a little bit.
All right.
I had no idea that alligator gars were up in Louisiana or up in Illinois.
Yeah, they're trying to bring them back. They used to be.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I think of that as like strictly like East Texas, Louisiana. No idea.
That's almost an ice fishing state.
And they even go further than Illinois.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I didn't know any of that. We're going to talk a little bit about buffalo, not the animal, the fish.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the fish buffalo. Here's how this whole thing came to be. There was an article. Like I can't police everything that happens. I can't police everything that happens. Now, a little bit, I'm going to complain about you.
Fair enough.
I'm going to praise you and complain about you.
Sounds about right.
There was an article on our website, on the MeatEater.com, and it was a bowfishing article, and it used terms like rough fish. as a catch-all, which as a catch-all, like, and we were using that, like, we didn't say trash fish as a kid. We used rough fish, meaning non-game fish, unregulated fish. Yeah. So if I was going to categorize, and I think most people in the country would understand what I'm talking about here. If I was going to categorize fish, like in the most basic general terms, would be, someone might be familiar with this lingo. Game fish, okay, which would be like regulated fish that people sport fish for. Then there'd be a fish that they don't really have a word for, but it's like the no-touch fish. In my area, sturgeon. Okay. Growing up in Michigan, it'd be like, no one would call a sturgeon a rough fish, but they're not a game fish. They're like a no-touch fish. Yeah. And then rough fish would mean any fish that there's no regulatory structure in place. No closed season, no bag limit, and method of take would be least regulated. And that's kind of what you would use the term for. It didn't mean you didn't want it. It didn't mean you didn't eat it. It just meant like wide open. Shad, carp.
You want to hear the origin of the rough fish term?
Hell yes, man.
Originated in mid to late 19th century commercial fishing practices to describe less valuable fish that were rough dressed, gutted but not filleted, and often discarded from riverboats to reduce weight and prevent spoilage.
Go back to the rough dress. That's great.
Yeah, gutted but not filleted.
That's where that comes from?
That's what it said. And then it evolved into...
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning. Well, I wasn't showering.
I thought it was like I thought it was a term that came from like England.
Yeah, I mean they've got a term over there. I mean they use rough fish in a different context. Yeah. It's not as sort of negative as it here. What's that?
They use it. Yeah, but they like name their carp.
Yeah. Well, carp are native to parts of Europe too. So but yeah, it's like with when they had the river boats and they had the fully dressed fish. So that was filleted, the fish that had higher value. And then you've got the rough dressed fish, which just had the guts taken out. And then when they had to make it, to market in time and navigate shallow waters and hot summers, they had to discard some of the catch. And so they ditched the rough dressed fish.
That's first to
and
go.
They kept the fully dressed fish.
Where was I? Oh, so we had this article come out and Solomon took affront. He wrote a mean email.
I think the email was
gentlest
that mean.
email.
He wrote a mean email being like, you're just contributing to the negativity. You're taking away from fish conservation, not respecting fish. Right?
I'm on your side.
Mean email.
That's a decent
I hope you all go to hell and die.
That was in the postscript. That was in the PS. Yeah.
That's how he ended it. I hope you go to hell and die. And he said, sometime we should get together and talk about some of these issues. Now, I haven't looked, but I trust you wrote very flattering, nice emails when we publish things like Gar recipes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't dig those up. But no, in all fairness, Solomon David, the Gar guy, wrote in saying, talking about a lot of his work doing with native fish that get from the perspective of like guys that grow up bowfishing, guys that grow up whatever, that they get a lot of these fragile native fish get kind of rolled into this category of trash fish or this category of rough fish. And we have these very loose regulatory structures, and people think they're out doing the world a favor by getting carp, like non-native carp out of a system or whatever. They think they're doing the world a favor. And meanwhile, they are also unknowingly or knowingly laying waste to like pretty sensitive native fish and throwing them up on the bank and thinking that they're somehow helping the world out. And it's like, it's time for people to get a little bit more of a nuanced perspective of what fish are in their waterways. And I would argue it's time to get a little smarter about how we regulate these things. Let's start out. There's a lot of folks here, so we're going to take turns asking questions. Let's start out by tell people what the GarLab is.
Right.
And within that, there's a second question.
All right.
Aren't you making the same mistake? Because you're saying GarLab, but you're talking about stuff besides Gar.
Right.
So you're lumping everybody into a Gar.
Well, Steve, if you look at the Big Ten Conference,
Okay.
are we more than 10 teams now? It's more of a name.
You've already lost.
It's more of a, you know. Well, you're Michigan, right? You know, we're now like
Big 10
18
isn't
teams.
10?
Yeah, it's not 10. It's like 18 teams now. So
Stupid.
You know,
I didn't know that.
It's more than name. We
Did
work
you know
on
that, Seth?
Yeah.
Straight honest.
Yeah.
You knew that.
I knew that.
It
I
has
didn't know.
been
I
10
didn't
for
know.
like 10 years.
I didn't know how many exactly, but I knew the Big Ten was.
I
more than 10.
went to Penn State, which was the first school that made the Big Ten more than 10 teams.
There's also a conference called the Big 12 that's not 12 teams.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll look it up later. I don't know if I buy it. I don't know if I believe it.
You know,
sure.
so Big Ten started with 10. GarLab started with Gar.
No, I understand.
But
That's a good point.
now we're expanding.
Okay.
There's a lot of
Understand.
non-game native fish that we want to work on.
But it started out working on Gar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still the flagship group. Yeah.
That so talk about the scope of the GarLab.
Right. So we want to use these sort of native non-game fish, these underappreciated fish, to answer questions about ecology, evolution, sustainable management, just informing our understanding of conservation of aquatic ecosystems, and also increasing our knowledge and also sort of sharing the value of freshwater biodiversity. So it's kind of a multifaceted thing. We use a small group of fish. I mean, there's only 7 species of gars, which is why we figured we had to expand now. But in order to show that, you can look at things like fisheries management, conservation, native fish angling and consumption from just looking at some of these species. People have been working on trout and walleye for ages. That stuff is being done. It's been done. So this is kind of
And
our
there's a
niche.
lot of money there.
Yeah. There's a lot more money there than there is in Gar and Bowfin.
Yeah,
in Buffalo.
funding on Gar and Bowfin work's got to be a bitch, man.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're trying to get by.
There's no like Gar fishermen of Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like
organizations.
Alligator Gar have a good
They're
PR thing going now.
They're
That's
sexy.
one of them that's kind of been improving
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's become a destination fish.
Yeah. All over the world, Texas and Louisiana, Mississippi.
7 Gar. Let's play a game.
All right.
You can't play.
Okay. All right.
Alligator Gar.
Spotted.
Oh, I could. Short nose, long nose.
Oh, slow down. We got alligator, spotted,
Short
nose,
long nose.
See, I just ran out.
Florida,
That's got it.
Cuba. I can't think of what the last
See, I
one
didn't know
would be.
about Florida and Cuba.
I don't either.
Are Florida and Cuba one?
Yeah, Florida Gar and Cuban Gar. Yeah.
I don't know what the last one
There's
would be.
one that runs from Mexico all the way down to Costa Rica. So you might call that range, what kind of range?
Mesoamerican.
You got temperate,
Central,
you got sub, and you
Yucatan.
got
Tropical.
tropical. Tropical Gar.
Tropical Gar?
Yeah, yep, tropical Gar.
Do none of the other ones get close to the size of this?
No, yep. Even as far as what we know in the fossils, alligator gar is still the biggest.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then short nose compared to long nose, like how many inches off are we from the max?
Yeah, I mean, short noses, they max out around maybe 36 inches.
Oh.
Long noses can get up to 60 inches, a little
That's
bit
a
more,
good fish,
65.
man.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
our Gar.
Yeah.
What percentage of that long nose is?
Yeah. The long nose, the nose makes up, quite a significant amount of
Yeah.
that. So I'd say, it's not 25%, but it might be like 10 or 15%. Yeah. Decent size. But even a short nose gar has a long nose, so it's all relative, right?
I want to get into what makes Gar and why they're special and what they do, but let's just pass through this whole. Let's talk about some terminology for a minute.
All right.
Trash fish, rough fish, non-game fish, right? What, like in the sort of do you have any idea? And it doesn't matter what state you draw from. In the regulatory structure, like how did that come to be? Do you understand?
Yeah.
Like take Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, whatever.
Yeah.
Like how did it come to be that they create the categorization?
Yeah. Well, we value some fish more than other fish. And so I think you got to look at, when you think about a historical perspective, it depends on where you're starting your history, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're thinking about maybe modern fisheries management, what's been going on for the past, 50, 100 years, we're looking at largemouth bass and trout and salmon. Those fish are valued because those are considered sport fish. People like to eat them. Maybe a significant portion of the population likes to eat them. But there are other fish like suckers and gars and bowfins that were eaten by indigenous peoples for a long time before that.
What about like colonial Americans
right.
or not even that? Did they have a different view of those fish or like what we'd call rough fish? Yeah, for sure. I think it gets kind of foggy. It is more of a colonial perspective when you think about the fish that we value now, especially if you look at a European influence. Like they've got trout over there. They've got fish that are kind of like perch, fish that are kind of like walleye. And even walleye took a little bit of time before people saw those as a game fish. So that definitely had an influence, whereas these other fish, people hadn't seen a gar before they came to North America. And they're looking at this like, what? We can't fillet this like you would a walleye or a trout. You got to use some sort of hatchet or, tin snips now to do that. So those other fish kind of fell by the wayside. And we value these, the bass, the trout, the salmon more. And that just kind of got wrapped up into fisheries management. So it started, like we talked about, with let's, fully dress some of these fish that are considered valuable. And some of these other fish might be less valuable, so we're just going to take the guts out. And if we got to get rid of some of them, then we will. And, you kind of follow the money. That's where, we valued them. We didn't value others. And, we did research that looked at even the science behind these. We've got way more research on steelhead and largemouth bass and Chinook salmon than we do on even some of the sturgeon or the suckers. So we like to think that science can attempt to be objective, but we got to follow where the money is, right? We've got way more money to look at these game fish, and now we're trying to play some catch up here. So that's been going on, 100 years back, 200 years back, when you're thinking about what was historically valued by different peoples and what is now being valued. And now we're just trying to make it a little bit more, inclusive as far as biodiversity is considered. Like, why not, take care of all the fish from a holistic ecosystem perspective? Because when you do that, that's good for everybody. When you think about waterways, water quality, habitat, that sort of thing.
Do you see, I don't know if you ever visited with any archaeologists on this issue, do you see much evidence of Native American use of, again, to define our terms, Native American use of gar, absolutely suckers, I know that, but like Native American use of gar and bowfin or dogfish? Oh, yeah. I mean, you can look at even early illustrations, when we had, colonial explorers coming in. I mean, they sketched those out. There are some early documentation of indigenous peoples actually sharing those fish, and there was some, I can't think of the reference right now, but some of the colonists actually thought that, like, wow, this fish actually is pretty good. But that switched, or, that we moved away from that pretty quickly. But as far as archaeology, you find arrowheads that were made out of gar scales. I mean, you look at a big alligator gar, they can use that. Those scales are basically made out of tooth enamel. So that's the hardest, substance that our, bodies produce. So it's not like other fish. So they've been part of human culture here in North America for a long time. What about bowfin, though?
Bowfin as a food fish for sure.
Really?
Even
that's a rough one.
Oh yeah,
that's
it can be.
I eat gars, no problem.
Yeah,
I like them.
Yeah,
bowfin's tough.
Really?
Yeah.
I lived in Louisiana for 6 years. We ate them all the time down there. Folks down there eat them. I was able to try them, but people fish for them alongside the roads, the big cane poles. Flip them across the road when they're getting them out of the bayous. But you can drive down the road and you can see shoe pick patties on the signs. So they call them shoe pick down there, which is kind of a French and indigenous name for them. So it's a very popular food fish down south.
You don't like them because why? They're
What's the
mushy or
flavor?
something, or what's your?
They turn. Yeah, they're
Are
just
they like brownish,
they have
or they? What's their?
They have over. I find relative to other fish, they have an overpowering flavor.
Yeah. Well, they do turn to mush pretty fast. So they call them cottonfish.
Do they?
Because, they got a bunch of different names, but because that flesh turns to mush, because they got these enzymes that just start breaking it down. So when I was down in Louisiana for one of my first times down there, went with a couple professors there. They, cook up anything. Shout out to Quentin Fontenot who can do this. They got bowfin, put them in a bucket. They're air breathers, so they can survive the trip, from where we were back home to their place. One of them got the fryer going. The other one took the bowfin out of the back of the truck, still alive because it can breathe air.
Okay.
Whacks the head on the back of the, on the tailgate, and then immediately starts filleting that, and then takes that fillet and throws it into the fryer. And that's basically what you have to do. You have to basically process them as quickly as you can after you've dispatch the fish. Otherwise, it just starts turning into goo. You can't throw that fillet in a freezer or anything like that. And it was delicious. It was great. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Well, I don't live in bowfin country anymore, but we grew up in it,
Yeah, Michigan, Minnesota's got bowfin. I mean, you got short-nosed gar out here though. So
Are they?
But I can't get excited about short nosers. Not to disparage them, but
yeah.
like a long-nosed gar,
You're already
that's
disparaging
a fish.
these fish. Yeah.
A long-nosed gar is like you can see like a long-nosed gar is an impressive fish.
Yeah.
Are bowfin kind of self-contained as far as like it's just them? They don't have other relatives.
Yeah,
a lot, like,
there used to be way more. And then recently, I was part of a study where we actually split them into 2 species. So, but then I don't know, 100 years ago, they thought there were maybe 10 of them. And then they're getting back to how understudied these fish are. Scientists back then said, nope, there's not 10, there's just 1 with no evidence whatsoever. Like, 10's too many. So we're going to condense that down. And then over the years, we found evidence from their morphology, like their shape and their genetics, that there's actually evidence for 2 species. And they're both pretty similar, but one's more on the Atlantic coast down to Florida, and one's from Michigan, Minnesota, all the way down to Louisiana. So we are still finding out new stuff about bowfin from what you can, eat. You can fish from on the fly. They fight really hard too. And now there's 2 species instead of 1.
How old are those species of gar?
They go, gars go back to Jurassic era types, like Jurassic period stuff. So 150 million years for gars. That's for the family. Like long-nosed gar, short-nosed gar, they're about 2.5 to 5 million years old. So.
And how much have they changed since then?
Very little. So if you were to look at a fossil gar and looked at a living gar, they basically look the same. Yep, same.
That was a question I had, and I want to spend some more time on that. People will point out, like, well, let me start with one that's annoying. People will say, that's an Ice Age relic. I'm like, you're an Ice Age relic. Like, mice are an Ice Age.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a dumb thing to say.
Right.
Like, humans were around during the Ice Age.
Yeah.
Like, name something that's not an Ice Age relic. It's not like there's a bunch of new species emerged since the Ice Age.
Yeah.
So that's dumb. But people will say, that's from the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? When we say the fish is ancient, what do we mean that it's ancient? Like is a walleye's not?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, help me understand the relative quality here.
Yeah. So some fish, and some organisms change at a faster rate than other organisms. So when we think about mutation is what leads to evolution. So organisms changing over time. But some of them change slow, some of them change fast. Walleye change faster. That group of modern fish, we kind of lump them together called TLAS. So walleye, perch, swordfish, tuna, they're all part of that group. Haven't been around as long as sturgeons and gars. Okay. And that brings in this idea of a living fossil, which sounds kind of paradoxical, right?
That's a good term.
Are you alive? Are you dead?
That's the one I'm talking about, the living fossil term. Like, what the hell do people mean?
Yeah, and so I feel like most people can kind of get an idea of what that means, but evolutionary biologists hate that term. They're going to actually that all the time, because they're going to be like, well, that means that these animals haven't been evolving or anything like that. Like, everything's evolving constantly as your DNA is replicating, passed from one generation to the next. But some change slower than others. And so if you were to look at a gar in the fossil record looking the same as what the shape of a gar looks like now, they have a very slow evolutionary rate.
Okay.
So you go back to the Jurassic period, they look basically the same as they do now. If we were to look at something that might be walleye's early ancestors, they're going to look different than what a walleye looks like.
You're not going to recognize them.
Yeah, you're not going to recognize them as much.
But I could be standing there, like, at the same time when there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex on the planet.
Yeah.
I could be standing there with my flashlight.
Yeah.
Shining into a marsh.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, holy shit, a gar.
Yeah. It looks the same as it does now.
The same basic groove.
Whereas look what happened to T-Rex. I mean, they're pigeons or the,
chickens.
Yeah.
I've dug around for fossils in the Green River Formation in Wyoming. Found a lot of different fish there. Most of what you're getting are extinct species of herring and shad.
Okay.
But sometimes you'll come across a gar scale that looks just like a gar scale today. You also come across paddlefish. These are 50 million year old fossils. You'll come across skates that look like our skates today. But there's like a handful of fish that when you see it, it's just identical to what you would catch today. And that's 50 million years old.
And at that time, there was not a bluegill.
There might have been bluegill-like fish, but definitely not bluegill like we know them today. Yeah.
No sunny spawning off the end of my mom's dock.
Yeah. The dock probably wasn't there either, but
they're a boned fish. Gar, all the things we're talking about are bones. No cartilaginous fish.
Yeah. Sturgeon and paddlefish
Yep.
are primarily cartilaginous fish, but that's different from like the sharks and the rays and skates.
Yep.
So you're all in that bony fish branch.
Can you real quick, just because you know all this, like I know it's not what we're here to talk about, but I just got a question.
Yeah.
Can you explain the fish that have like the notochord?
Yeah.
Like talk about that.
Yeah.
Explain that to people.
Yeah, I mean, notochord's kind of an early, it goes along with your vertebral column and the spinal cord. So some early animals, when you think about the lancelets or chordates, they had a notochord, but they didn't have a true vertebral column. So for a while, there was this idea that hagfish and lampreys didn't have what we consider to be vertebrae. So we didn't consider them vertebrates. We consider them a little bit off from that. But now the new research going back to the fossil record suggests that hagfish and lamprey are also vertebrates. So the notochord sort of thing is an early structure, but now we're kind of past that. So some fish, let's say when you do talk about notochords, gars, when they're little, they've got a notochord that extends like a filament off the backside of the tail, and they use that like a little helicopter rotor. So when they're little, they move like little sticks through the water.
That's the notochord whipping around?
It's basically an extension of the notochord. And as they get older, that reduces down. They don't keep that longer than their first year because eventually the physics of water changes, right? You kind of think of it as moving with a little propeller, you're moving a little animal through there. As they get bigger and bigger, you can't propel that through that anymore. And by then their scales harden, they're able to eat fish. But they move their pectoral fins, beating back and forth really rapidly. So if you ever get the chance, I think we got some video we can send you too, but they move that little notochord, that extension, like a filament there. So a lot of those early fish, you can see it in bowfin, even in pike, they have a little one. They don't use it the same way gars do, but you will see a little bit of a notochord extension. So you see that in early development of a lot of vertebrates, but eventually that kind of goes by the wayside and, gets kind of overpowered by a lot of other structures.
One of the more impressive things I've seen is I was with my friend Kevin Murphy, and we're fishing catfish, but here comes a big paddlefish that got hit by a boat prop, kind of half dead. So I shot it with my bow. I mean, it was already a mess.
Yeah.
It was fresh. When he cut it and that was a noise pulling that notochord out, dude, that was an unbelievable sight.
Yeah.
And it looks way longer.
Just draw it out.
Right.
Had you seen that before?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll come out like 5 times longer than the fish was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was an unbelievable sight. And that made me think that was like a very different kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're also, you could be pulling the spine, like you're pulling that spinal cord out of the actual spinal column. I'd have to, look into that with the paddlefish and the sturgeon, they're very similar, but yeah. How long was that, would you say?
I don't know, man. We got it on video. It was long.
How did it taste though? Paddlefish, not necessarily the notochord.
Man, when you trim them up, they're good.
Okay.
But you got to trim them carefully. It's like shark and stuff. Like you got to trim it. All that red. The fat's not good. You got to get the fat off, I think. When you trim them up, they're good.
Nice. I've had sturgeon, I haven't had paddlefish. So.
Now, shovel-nosed sturgeon, that's not a good fish to eat.
Yeah, they're pretty spiny,
Yeah, the yield is low.
Yeah.
Like you clean it, there's nothing left. You feel bad that you killed the thing in the first place, and then you fry it up and it's not good.
Yeah.
That's been my finding.
They farm white sturgeon though. Those are good.
Fish,
Yeah.
That's a real good fish. Okay, we're all. Let's talk about these ones for a minute because these are the big, like how alligator gar are becoming fashionable. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Your work is complete on alligator gar. And I even recently saw that they're making it. I think, who was it? What state was trying to make it that you can't shoot an alligator gar with a bow anymore?
Oh, really? Huh.
Or pushing for it.
Huh.
And I remember being like, oh, brother, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they've definitely had a reputation improvement. You think about shows like River Monsters that came out, almost 20 years ago now. Jeremy Wade going out there. I remember yelling at the TV when that episode was on because that picture isn't right or that's not the right thing. But, overall, I think that was a win because you've got these big river fish that people weren't paying attention to. And you had this idea of the habitat's important. You can go and catch these fish. They're not, monsters that are eating people or anything like that. So I think that the reputation has definitely improved. We went fishing down in Texas with Bubba Bedry, #1 gar guide in the world. He took Jeremy Wade out, and he used to be a bow fisher, and he realized that, over the years, these big fish were going away. He wasn't seeing nearly as many as they were out there. And he realized, if his livelihood was going to depend on these fish, he's got to put them back. And then, now they're even more valuable because people are coming from all over the world to fish for them, catch them, and then also release them.
Yeah, one of my buddies in Michigan went down to Texas for a catch and release alligator gar.
Yeah, yep.
Trip.
That's what most people do now. I would say the majority are doing that. I mean, there's still people that harvest them. They've got a 1 fish per day limit that Texas Parks and Wildlife has put in. They've got probably some of the most conservation-oriented regulations in Texas. You say that the job is done. I don't think, we're joking, but the job isn't done. You look next door in Louisiana, also arguably one of the healthiest gator gar populations in the world. There's no regulations on them. So you can shoot as many as you want. And the thing is, these are giant fish. We work with the fish rodeos there, and we
shoot
learn
as
a
many
lot
as you
from
want.
them.
You can shoot as many of these as you want.
Yeah.
I got a
There's
question.
no limit. Yeah.
How long, if someone's killing, say, 100-pound alligator gar, which is not nearly as big as they get, but 100-pounder, say, how long does it take to replace that fish if someone kills one?
It depends on where you're coming from. Texas, there's different populations in the Trinity River versus coastal populations. So I've had students work on this when I was down in Louisiana. I lived there for 6 years. And so those coastal populations have access to different kinds of food, right? And gars can live in full salt water. You'll find them with bull sharks and sea turtles, way off the Gulf there. So they have access to food, but they can also go into fresh water. They mainly need the fresh water to spawn.
How far off the Gulf where you find them?
I mean, you can find them miles off the Gulf.
No, really?
Yeah. You go to the aquarium, the Audubon Aquarium in New Orleans, they've got them with sea turtles and tarpon, of course, and then all kinds of sharks, sandbar sharks.
What are they doing out there? Is there like a motivation?
They can forage out there. I mean, it's other food that they can go after. So, if they can tolerate it, which all gars can tolerate salt water for the most part. Long noses you can find miles off the coast too. So, So highly adaptive. And, I think some of the latest research suggests that gars probably originated in salt water and made their way into fresh water. But
is that right?
Yeah, that sort of paleontology gets flip-flopped all the time.
Can they live in salt their whole life?
They can't. They theoretically could, but they couldn't reproduce. They need that fresh water for reproduction. Alligator gars in particular need submerged terrestrial vegetation to spawn on. So they need that big flood pulse. And you don't get those big floods every year. So they have to take advantage. You think about the flood in 1927.
He needs a dry land plant that happens to be underwater to spawn.
Typically, in a lot of the rivers and the floodplains where they spawn, they basically are spawning on submerged terrestrial vegetation. They aren't really
because he needs his egg to dry out for a while, or what is it?
It's just that's kind of indicative of the floodplain being submerged for a decent amount of time. Those eggs hatch. They hatch in like maybe a day or two. Depending on water conditions and temperature. And then they'll move out within that season. But we've had alligator gars, they hatch out about, less than half an inch long. Within a month and a half, they can be 12 inches long. Within their first season, they grow fast.
I want to get back to the age thing. Like
how old
is in the Trinity River in Texas, how old is a 100-pounder? This is like a multi-part question.
Sure, yeah.
How old is it? Have you seen like the average size of these things shrinking? And then like, how do they deal with eating a chunk of dead carp with a treble hook that goes way down its throat? Like, and if you cut the line, does that thing do just fine?
Right. You're right. That is a series of questions.
Stacking them in like cordwood.
If I keep going off on these tangents, I get it. Yeah. Get them in while you can. So like a 100-pound fish might be something like, 5 feet, 6 feet long. It depends. So we mainly go by length because depending, if it's a gravid female, it's going to weigh way more.
Yeah.
But you could be looking
what was
at
the word
20
you used?
Gravid. So that means got lots of eggs.
You ever heard that before?
Egg wagon.
Yeah. There you go.
That's what gravid means?
Yep, that's what gravid means.
Never heard that word.
Yeah.
You didn't hear that word before.
I worked at a fish hatchery.
Yeah, that's right.
I've worked with Solomon for a decade.
That's right.
For a minute. You heard that word, Brody?
Yep.
Doubt it.
So we go by lengths more than weight, but that could be 20 years old. It could be 40 years old.
Okay.
And the thing
you're
is,
not talking like 100-year-old fish.
It could be. So males, if you got an alligator gar that's over 6 feet long, that's typically going to be a female. Males don't tend to get that big. So you could get males that live for that long, but if you're talking just 6-foot fish that we don't know what the sex of it is, 20, 40, but if it's an old male, it could be 60, 80. We know they can live for over 100 years. Yeah.
I thought you were going to wind up saying a lot older.
We don't know.
But when you said they can hit 12 inches, how fast?
Within a month and a half.
What?
But if they're fed
That doesn't
properly,
make any sense.
they can reach 2 feet within that first growing season. They can get big fast. Yeah, they get huge. Even long-nosed gars
That's
can reach
crazy.
about, we got some out of Minnesota, about 15 inches long that were born, hatched out this year. And they hatch out in May. Michigan, Minnesota, it doesn't stay warm that long. So would have hatched out in May. We caught one in August, and it was already about 15 inches long.
And then does it slow way down after the first year?
In sort of temperate regions, it slows down a bit because of winter. But what we found in our work is that they've actually evolved a faster growth rate in the north than they are in the south.
Oh.
But they live a shorter time in the south. If you're looking at fish that are from the north versus the south, alligator gar is a little bit different. But so they can live a long time and they grow super fast because they're eating fish. Gars switch to eating fish faster than any other North American fish, faster than muskie, faster than pike, faster than bass. They also like to eat each other. A good gar-shaped, fish to eat is another gar.
Got it.
What are they eating on that first day of life?
Yolk sac stuff. So, they've got the yolk, which is also somewhat poisonous. So gar eggs are poisonous. You're not going to find people making gar caviar. So if you're ever prepping that,
I think I might have heard that, but I forgot it.
Yeah, it's pretty toxic. So they're toxic for, the first few days. And then once they absorb that yolk sac, then they're eating plankton. So usually like, Daphnia, that sort of stuff, zooplankton. But what we found is what might actually lead to the alligator gar growing so big in their first year is that their gills are a little bit different than long-nosed gars and short-nosed gars. They actually have a filtration aspect to their gills. And we actually found an alligator gar that was about this big down in Louisiana, and its stomach was full of plankton. And so
He's eating like a baleen whale.
Exactly. It's like, imagine like a great white shark eating krill, which is what you're looking at, because you don't think of an alligator gar as a filter feeder. And so my students,
how's it getting from? Because that's like feeding into his bloodstream. How's it getting? Like he's like raking it out.
Yeah.
And then it somehow is getting down his esophagus.
Yeah. Just like, paddlefish are filter feeders, right? So alligator gars and the Cuban and tropical gar have gill rakers that work kind of like a sieve. And so they can actually filter out the plankton, and that goes down their esophagus, like you said. Whereas long-nosed and short-nosed gars, we got spotted gars the same day. The gill rakers are very different, nothing in their stomach. But we didn't know what it was. We had this frozen fish, and my students brought it up to me. It's like, we don't know what this is in the stomach, because I'm always doing paperwork, so I tell the students when they're doing dissections, let me know if you find anything cool. We found half a giant rat in a bowfin once. We found all kinds of stuff. But they said, we found some in the stomach. We don't know what it is. It looks like a popsicle. And so I'm like, well, there's a frozen fish. So I said, all right, let's take a look at it. We dissected it, and they were chopping it up. I'm like, this looks really weird. It reminds me of some fish food I used to feed to fish at home. I have gars and aquariums at home too. And so we ran some water over it, and it started like melting into these particles. I thought, this is really weird. It's bright orange too. I'm kind of like krill or carotenoid organisms.
Like an orange popsicle.
And so we looked under the microscope, and it was all copepods, and the stomach was full of this. And so up until then, it had only been anecdotal, stories about them maybe filter feeding in Mexico and other places. So we think being able to take advantage of those other food types allows them to grow that big. I mean, think about whales, right? They're getting that big, eating those smaller food items. So not only are they eating shad and mullet, but they're actually able to eat these other fish too. So there's a lot left to be discovered about these fish.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
So how do they deal with, like, as far as mortality and stuff, with a great big rusty? Because when people are fishing for them, they're letting them chew on that chunk of dead bait for a minute.
Yeah.
Then they're just cutting the leader?
I don't know.
Usually they try to retrieve it. I know that a lot of anglers now are trying to use just circle hooks or J hooks as opposed to the treble hooks. There's even when I included a picture of this, they come up with a gar saver rig, which actually has a bar, so the gar can't actually take it down into its stomach.
Oh, really?
Like
it keeps it in the jaws.
crossbar?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
so
like a crossbar. Yeah, so that way it allows the hook to get stuck in the jaws,
Yeah.
which are easy to retrieve, but it doesn't go all the way down the stomach. Because you could gut hook a fish, and that could be problematic. It's hard to say. We know so little about these fish that even looking at catch and release mortality with the hooks like that is understudied. We know it's less mortality than bowfishing or bowfish catch and release, which does exist, but so
that exists.
Yeah.
But it exists, but it doesn't exist where they're picturing that it's going to live to be shot another day.
Believe it or not, in 8 states, catch and release bowfishing, shoot and release bowfishing is legal.
Yeah,
and
but that's not that. that just deburdens them with needing to deal.
Right.
They don't think that it's living.
Well, that's when there's been conversations about changing that regulation. Like, let's make shoot and release bow fishing not legal, which seems reasonable. Would you shoot and release a deer or a duck or something like that and just kind of leave it behind? The argument is that, well, those fish are okay.
Because they're just so tough, like they just hard to kill.
Or, anecdotal, like, I've shot a bunch of fish, and I'm paraphrasing, overnight. And the next day we shot maybe 100, 200 fish, suckers, gar. And the next day there weren't any of them around. So they must have been fine. They all went, or they all sunk to the bottom.
Most people that get shot by a gun don't die.
Right.
But it's not like when you shoot people, it's not like a shoot and release.
Yeah.
What you're not thinking of it that way.
Right. And so
chances are that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't think that the shooter is thinking of it like that. I think the shooter's like, oh sweet, I don't need to even deal with it.
Right. Yeah, it's and
they shake it off the arrow.
Well, they shake it off the arrow and then they kind of leave it. But then they've done studies to look at shoot and release mortality, where they've shot them and looked at them. Depending on where the animal gets shot, that depends on how it's going to survive, how long it's going to survive. Within 24 hours, if it's in the head or the spine, that fish is dead.
Sure.
But even after that, if it's somewhere else, it was over 50%. 72 hours later. So that's one of the things.
True. But that's true of like. Most deer, I don't know about most. Yeah, most deer.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Spencer, what percent of deer that aren't? This is impossible to answer.
Yeah.
What percent of deer that aren't recovered, archery shot whitetails that aren't recovered? What percent do you think die?
That aren't recovered, what percent die? In like the next couple days, I would say 50%.
Yeah.
By like the end of that following winter, probably another 10 or 20%. So that leaves like 30% to survive for the next hunting season.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
My only point being, I think that anyone that acts like they're shooting that arrow into that fish as a way of letting it go is being cute with themselves.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's like absurd.
Yeah. And I think that's what, not to go too far.
You say about everything, but hey, sometimes you hit a duck and it doesn't die.
Yeah.
This is no different than that.
Right.
I'm like, well, no, it's different.
Well, ducks are managed, right? And deer are managed. So that's part of the reason why we're looking, why not just manage these populations, put a limit on it, as opposed to shoot 1,000 and then there's, what are you doing with them? If you're eating 1,000 gar, like my hat's off to you. But even as much as I like eating gar, I'm not eating 1,000 gar. But not to digress too much from the question.
Are your questions?
I'm good. I'm caught up.
Okay.
I think so. I'll think of more. I could go on all day.
I was thinking of different parallels. I was trying to think of this morning. I was trying to think of different parallels in the bird world, in bird management. We've accounted for all birds in bird management because we have the Migratory and Songbird Treaty. Like we have a couple non-native. We have a handful of non-native deleterious English sparrows, European starlings. Columbolivia, the street pigeon.
But you can kill as many as you want, but no one does.
Collared dove. Okay. We have a handful of like deleterious, so like very much deleterious non-native. We have all of our game birds. We don't have loose ends in the bird world.
Yeah.
But then I start thinking in the mammal world, we have a lot of loose ends in the mammal world where you have, there's a host of like non-game species that are, some of them are desired. Like most states will run opossums. Most states are going to run skunks. Most states are going to run short-tail, long-tail, and least weasel, non-game. Those are all native animals, right? So there's a parallel there where you just have this kind of like loosey-goosey configuration.
And it varies by state.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like there's animals here that would be fur bearers and other like highly regulated.
Yeah,
fur
they
bearers.
run red fox in this state. They run red fox as a non-game, no close season, no bag limit. They're tightly regulated in other states.
Yeah.
So it's like, so with birds, we've kind of like sort of made every bird has its area of regulatory structure. With animals, we don't, and with fish, we definitely don't.
Yeah.
Like. And with fish, I think the problem is with fish is we don't even have, there's not even like a native, non-native distinction. Like you would think a state would say, well, this gets so complicated because I in my notes, you know what I wrote in my notes? Bowfishing conundrum and the Rinella solution.
Ah, nice.
Part of the problem is in a lot of the big bow fishing states, they made it a long time ago that you can't hunt the good eating fish. So it drives everybody to hunt the not good eating fish. In South America, they bow fish. Like I've been out bow fishing in South America. You're after the best fish in the river.
Yeah.
Because they bow fish the really good ones.
Yeah.
So they've boxed dudes in. And like, you can't bowfish this, you can't bowfish that, you can't bowfish this. So it is putting a lot of emphasis on these other things.
Yeah.
But I do think it's ridiculous to me that a state agency wouldn't come in and say, if they're going to be like that, and they're not going to let you bowfish the good stuff, a state agency would come and say, non-native, deleterious fish are open all the time.
Right.
And there's no closed season, there's no bag limit, and there's a very loose method of take structure. Native fish have bag limits.
Yeah.
But like what they're going to say is people can't tell the difference.
Right.
This is what I was talking about this earlier. They're going to like, well, how could you expect someone to tell a carp from a buffalo?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know. How can you expect them to tell a widgeon from a gadwall?
Exactly.
From a mallard, from a wood duck?
Yep.
Right? How can you like? You're obligated to tell all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
How can you tell a deer's antler is over or under 3 inches long?
Right.
I don't know. Like you figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we would like to do is just let's get some, at least attempt at some equal application of that onto fish. And I will say that Minnesota very recently in 2024 enacted the most comprehensive native fish conservation bill, put it into law, where they did one of the first things.
Are you the lobbyist on that?
I'm one of the advocates for it.
Sure.
Yeah. I did that even from down in Louisiana before I had any inklings of coming up to Minnesota. But so they did separate common carp from the other native non-game fish. That was one of the first things they did because they call them now native rough fish, which are like, it's the least worst name because you still got the rough fish, but at least
yeah, but that's fine.
What do you
now
want
that I know where
exactly.
now that Brody told me where it came from, I don't know.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about the name so much as now that we can get the work done. So if we've got the separation there, I'm not as concerned, at least on some level, with the naming so much as we've got a category that separates the common carp, the other invasive carp from our buffalo, our gars, our bowfins, and it's allowing us to then have restitution values. So if you have wanton waste, there's a penalty for walleye and bass. I think it's like something like $30 a walleye if you have, wanton waste for walleye and a lot of the game fish. So even if they had like a negligible amount for, buffalo or bowfin or gar, I mean, that would start racking up.
Sure.
So we've got some regulation there, and we're going in the right direction. And so Minnesota's kind of leading the charge with that. I've got colleagues in Michigan that want to do the same thing. Wisconsin, we've got colleagues in Oklahoma. So I do think it's something that's going to start catching on. We know that it's already catching on. And these native fish have been here for, longer than we have. So I think if we can get past the sort of human construct of this game fish, this is the valuable one, and this is not the valuable one, and just look at a base level, let's apply what we do to duck hunting to fish. You have to be able to tell the difference. Like, sure, a buffalo, looks similar to a carp. I'll agree with that. But we hear from bowfishers, well, it takes a lot of skill to, accommodate for the refractive index of water, right? So you already have to pay a lot of attention. How about we apply that to just look, does it have barbels? Is the scale type different? What does the dorsal fin look like? Apply that. And then also just these wanton waste limits. Like, I mean, is there really a reason to shoot 1,000 gar or hundreds and hundreds of buffalo if you're not eating them? You look at the, North American model for wildlife conservation, that third, point there of like not a frivolous use for, killing the animal. And I've had buffalo ribs, I've had gar, I've had bowfin. Hopefully you try that sometime soon. But there are uses for that, right? So it's sort of an eat what you kill and be able to identify it.
I want to be clear, I've tried it.
Yeah.
But I think I might have waited.
Didn't like it, yeah.
I might have waited too long.
Right.
Is there a lot of evidence for non-native species like common carp, Asian carp impacting, or other non-natives, non-native game fish, like impacting these native rough fish species?
Yeah, I mean, the non-native, so we can take that as the invasive fish, right? I mean, because non-native is a pretty, interesting term, right? You look in the Great Lakes region, we got steelhead, we got Chinook salmon, but those aren't invasive.
Some
Those are
people call them
introduced,
invasive.
right?
Right. It's like
So carp and so common carp and the invasive carp, like the silver carp and the bighead carp, especially the silver and the bighead, they eat plankton. So they're actually attacking the food web at the bottom of the food web, and that's what all the little fish, whether they're game fish or other native fish, they need to eat to grow. And so they are actually opening up for a potential trophic cascade from basically the bottom up. So they are problematic, and they reproduce very fast. They get really big really fast. Common carp, they stir up the water, they remove vegetation, and they're super durable fish. So, I mean, those are problems that we've let in, and we can't eradicate those. It's all about control there. So they do affect the native fish. Now, on the other end, the bigmouth buffalo is a planktivorous fish. It's one of our biggest planktivores. They actually compete with the silver carp and the bighead carp. So, as we work on controlling for invasive species, but also just bolstering and maybe protecting some of those native fish, maybe if it's just limits, you're actually creating a more resilient system to buffer against those invasive species.
So there's no advantage either. Like gar aren't taking advantage of all these little Asian carp that are swimming around?
They are. There's been a study down, I think it was out of Indiana or Illinois, which actually showed that short-nosed gar were one of the few native predators were selecting for invasive carp. So they were eating the silver carp and the bighead carp. The thing is, those are top predators, right? There's not going to be enough gars to eat all of the invasive carp. Yeah. So it helps. It's a nice story when you got a native fish that can help you out against invasive fish. Whitefish, Lake Whitefish in Lake Michigan eat zebra mussels, but they're not going to solve the zebra mussel problem. There was a story, that came out back in 2016 where that really was starting to rehab the gator gar reputation. Was like, a way to control invasive carp was alligator gars. And this gets to them restocking them in Illinois. It's like, well, we get the alligator gars. That's going to be our silver bullet. There is nowhere near enough alligator gars. There never will be to control for the silver carp. Yeah. And those of us that were, interviewed for the story that said like, we should probably pump the brakes on that. That was kind of left out of that story because the AP ran with it. It went everywhere, Washington Post, LA Times, and they eventually had to do retractions along with the Illinois DNR that had to walk it back. Illinois DNR realized that this is not the story we want to tell. Like, this is what the science says. So, we have to be
people always run away. That kind of thing people run away with, these books. Like, guys will do a book like, "Well, I eat nothing but non-native species as a conservationist." It's like, buddy, you're not going to eat your way out of this.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gar are also, in my observations, pretty inefficient predators, at least short nose and long nose. I used to have to take care of them at our aquarium, at the fish hatchery aquarium. And when you dump minnows into like a gar tank, they'll roll up next to the minnow, and then they'll like do a very sudden swipe at them, and it would be like 50% of the time they would get their minnow. Now, a bass does not miss like that. A walleye doesn't miss like that. But like long nose gar especially, we're very bad at catching a healthy minnow.
I wonder if it's because he doesn't have the suction.
Yeah, he's
when he
just
opens
like,
his mouth, he doesn't create a vacuum.
It seemed as though he was guessing often where his rostrum was going to end up.
This is just not fair at all. Go ahead,
yeah. Do you see that with alligator gar? You like that thing is not very good at catching like an adult fish.
Well, first healthy. I'd say if they weren't good at catching fish, they wouldn't be around for 150 million years. So clearly they're doing some. But I agree with you. In captive situations, and we see this in aquariums and in hatchery, in our tanks in the lab, they're, it's like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park. It doesn't want to be fed. It wants to hunt. And so, like, you get used to captivity. And so they realize, like, they don't have to, connect every single time. Sure. A longnose got a lot of range. They might be used to, going after fish in the open water. And so it's a little bit different dynamics than if you're in a rounded tank or a raceway and you got all those fish that can kind of navigate a little bit better. So I will agree, they do miss. But, you watch a wildlife documentary, the cheetah doesn't catch the gazelle every time either. So
take a little baby human and lock it up in a room.
Totally.
And then a couple years later, be like, I don't see this thing's not that smart.
Yeah.
My takeaway from watching gar feed was that they're picking on not the healthy individuals.
Right, which is what predators would do in the wild anyway, right? But gars in captivity actually have smaller teeth than the gars in the wild. So when we catch them out of the wild, they got bigger teeth, which makes sense, right? So if you're not using, that material, why put energy into sort of, generating or growing bigger teeth? So.
Do they scavenge at all, or is it mostly, because for these guys, a lot of dead baits get used.
Yeah. Gator gars will scavenge, spotted gars, short-nosed gars. They'll feed off the bottom. You'll see them even in Indiana and Illinois. They'll basically headstand with the tails are sticking out of the water. So whether they're eating crawfish or whether they're scavenging. Long-nosed gars more feeding on fish and whatever they can get down. They're more active feeders. It's like they'd be trying to like using forceps, and we already know that you don't have confidence in their ability to eat anyway, so they're not going to be able to pick off stuff out the bottom.
Yeah.
So.
I come from a long line of bow fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a bow fisherman. That's about the extent of it.
That is a long line.
Yeah.
It is for bow fishing. It's a long line.
Yeah,
of bow fishing.
it is.
But he was bow fishing back when you would take a Folgers coffee can.
Okay.
Okay, picture you got a recurve bow.
Mm-hmm.
You take a Folgers coffee can, take a tin snip, and first off, you cut the end off it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a cylinder now.
Okay.
And you take a tin snip and make 2 flanges
Okay.
that you can hose clamp the flanges to your bow, above and below the rest. Then you wrap the line around the Folgers can, pass the arrow through the can, so that when you shoot, the arrow goes through the can and pulls the line out. That's
Nice.
old school bow fishing.
That's impressive.
I'm only setting this up to be that a multi-generational bow fisherman. I often find myself criticizing my own kind, okay, my own brethren, my own bow fishing brethren, who are like, oh, we're doing the world a favor, you know. And I was like, listen, it's fine to go bow fish carp. That's fine. You're not hurting anything. You're not helping anything. Like, you cannot mechanically remove carp from the Great Lakes or whatever watershed. Like, you can't mechanically remove them to a point where you have made any difference. We one time had a guy on the podcast, and we had an expert on, USGS guy, about Burmese pythons in the Everglades. He explained, like, all this snake rodeo, this and that, doesn't matter. Like, when they wind up doing the work on the pythons and how many are there, how many you're catching, that whole world, he's like, knock yourself out. Have a good time. It don't matter. After that, I was in Florida, and the guy's telling me, Richard Martinez, telling me his buddy, oh, he hates you. I'm like, what? Which I hear this often. And I'm always like kind of like anxious to hear what he hates me about. He hates me because that guy said that. He's a snake catcher. He hates me because that guy said that and I didn't challenge him. But it's like some things don't matter. Shooting carp in the Great Lakes, you are not helping anything. You're not hurting anything. You're not helping anything.
So it's not like coyote hunters when it's like shoot a coyote, save a fawn. It's not like shoot a carp, save a whatever.
Yeah. Coyotes. It's been proven to be effective if it's done in a spatially, in a temporally and spatially advantageous set of circumstances. So you're not going to get there bow fishing carp. You're not helping anyone.
Yeah.
Now, are they, if you're bow fishing gar, is it also a drop in the bucket? Like, you're not actually having population level impacts on gar, just like you're not having population level impacts on carp, or is it different?
I would say it's different.
Okay.
You look at where they are on the food web, right? I mean, carp are pretty omnivorous. They're eating, stuff off the bottom, vegetation, sometimes bugs, whereas gars are more on your sort of predator, apex predator level, right?
Okay.
There's way fewer gars than there are carp. So sure, you may be doing a drop in the bucket with carp, and there's other ways. We work with organizations out in Minnesota that do carp removals on the inland lakes, and they actually do make a difference, but that's like massive carp traps and everything. So you're right. Shooting the carp, you can feel good about it. Part of what we want to say is like, if you want to shoot something, shoot carp, shoot invasive species, shoot as many as you want. There aren't limits on those, as far as I know.
No.
And definitely in Minnesota, Michigan, those places, just dispose of them properly, but, shoot as many as you want there.
That's aesthetic, for sure.
Yeah.
We'll talk about
and
that.
So, but the gars, there's fewer of them. There's fewer of the bowfin. Those are your predatory fish. And so when you do sort of take out a large number of these predatory animals that also live for a long time. I know we have disrespect for the short-nosed gar, but even they can live for 50 years. So, and we just found that from our work down in Mississippi. So if the sort of latitudinal differences mean anything, we expect they probably live longer in Montana and in Minnesota than they do down south. So if they can live for 50 years down in Mississippi, it's probably even older up here. And I would take an aside to say I'm really impressed with what Montana's doing. They've got a 5 gar limit. You have to get a gar card now as of this year to get short-nosed gars. So I thought that was pretty cool. Got in touch with the Fish and Wildlife on that.
Who the hell's getting after short-nosed gars?
I don't know. It's
No clue.
Not long-nosed gar, that's a fish.
I'm glad you're impressed. That was my first fish, actually, on the Muskegon River in
What?
Michigan. I know
That's
you're
my
around
home
Muskegon. I know.
water,
I did
dude.
my master's thesis on the Muskegon River. It's a new way.
We did a bowfishing episode
Right.
filmed on the Muskegon River
Oh,
in
really?
which we messed around with bowfin.
Oh, really? Nice.
I thought, didn't you shoot a gar?
We shot gar, we
Yeah.
shot
Nice.
bowfin,
Yeah.
Yeah.
suckers.
Yeah, we worked on
Shooting
all
those
those fish
gar.
on the Muskegon.
On the Muskegon River?
Yeah. 2001 to 2005, probably.
Are
I
you
was out there
shitting me?
all the
Really?
time. Yeah. We stayed at that old Coast Guard station out on the
Sure,
on
man.
like Mona Lake was
Did
out
you
there
really?
too. Yeah. I
Muskegon
knew it well.
River.
Yep.
More Skegan, please.
Yeah.
That's what we
Yeah,
always
the
say.
paper mill there,
Oh yeah,
That's something
My
else,
old
but-
girlfriend's dad was a millwright at that
Oh,
paper
okay,
mill.
okay,
Yeah, I
got
went to
it.
see him in the Tough Man
Yeah.
contest one time.
Oh wow. It's one of the only spots you can find Chinook salmon and long-nosed gars in the
Oh.
same river system.
Love that.
Along with the buffalo and the
That was the
redwoods.
only what?
It's one of the few places you can see Chinook salmon and long-nosed
Yeah.
gars in the same river system.
That's great.
Oh
But,
man, we used to hunt that flat for ducks.
yeah.
Yeah, but
everything.
those are invasive Chinook.
Yeah,
salmon.
right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's do that for a minute. Let's play that game for a
Yeah.
minute.
Uh-huh.
Because if you look up, let's say you take a term like weed and you look up weed in a dictionary. A weed just means like a non-desirable,
Sure.
right? It's a non-desirable plant.
Right.
So when we say something that's like, here's where it gets a little tricky. If you take a fish and you deliberately introduce it,
Mhm.
it usually doesn't carry the it's not
Right,
native.
you can't retroactively call it invasive kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like doesn't carry invasive because invasive implies not desirable.
Yeah.
But I was reading this book. There's a really good book called Fishing the Great Lakes. It's a history of commercial fishing in the Great Lakes. And it talks about, it's funny because the dude's name, there's this ichthyologist named Seth Green.
Mm.
It's hard to look him up because of the other dude.
Just-
But they were working to, as they were collapsing all the native fisheries in the Great Lakes from over harvest and then rafting all those logs in all the spawning grounds so the bark falls off. Then you got like 13 feet of bark laying over the spawning habitat.
Yeah.
As they're destroying all the native fish, they're in there introducing carp deliberately, thinking that people are going to appreciate them as a food fish the same way they're appreciated in Europe and appreciated in Asia. So there you get like, okay, so it was deliberately introduced. There was budget for it. We now regard them as deleterious, like whatever.
Yeah.
So there's all these like terminologies. No one says like salmon in the Great Lakes are absolutely not native. Walleye and the rivers here and in the lakes here are not native, but they're not like
invasive.
no people don't call them invasive.
Some people will try to, right? I mean, you'll hear people try to call brown trout invasive. You
Yeah,
know?
I do that just to be cute.
Yeah, I do that too.
And I tease pheasants too.
Yeah.
I tease pheasants. I tease brown trout, rainbow trout, pheasants. But just to clarify the terminology.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's all perspective.
Yeah, so introduced versus invasive, that's a tricky thing, and so yeah, we've got introduced salmonids. I think getting back to Brody's question, like those introduced salmonids are problematic in some parts of the eastern United States. You've got, even the next category, those like non-game native fish, like the shiners and the darters and the minnows, they're problematic for some of those nest building areas. They take up space, they eat the fish there, the native species. So
Have
even
you
some of the
guys
salmonids
done
can-
any like reintroductions of these native fish in places where maybe they're wiped out or they're just not doing well?
There's a group called Conservation Fisheries down in Tennessee that's doing that, and
Yeah.
so they're doing that with like different types of mad toms, darters,
But
and
not
so they're-
like the bit like gar. and-
not gar. Well, that gets back to Illinois and the alligator gar. So
Yeah.
they
Lay
are
out
trying to
where
reintroduce
who all
those.
had alligator gar.
Went all the way up into Illinois.
So it was all the Mississippi, Missouri system.
Yeah. And so the damming and the levying and the eradication efforts. So sure, I mean, the looking at them as sort of trash fish and problematic was a problem, but so was the dams and the levees and the modification, cutting them off from those floodplain habitats where they can't get to that terrestrial vegetation that they need to spawn. And so now a big effort is not only to introduce some of those, populations to try to recharge those, but also to reconnect the river with its floodplain habitat. And that is research that we're working on with Nature Conservancy, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, to make those connections between the river and the floodplain, because that's good for the gars, it's good for other fish, it's good for water birds. We see thousands of these wood storks down there, all kinds of different animals. But we're using the gars as kind of an indicator of that because they do migrate onto the floodplain. So we've kind of used try to get some money for the grants is to show that you can use GARs as indicators of this restoration efficacy. If you reconnect that river with the floodplain, these are fish that move on to them. So do we see the fish moving on there? Do we see those 12-inch young of the year popping out in, a month and a half? And so far, we've seen that success there. And we do see tons of crappie there, a lot of other animals as well taking advantage of those habitats.
So you'll put a tag on a gar and you'll see him travel out into that stuff.
We're tagging some of them with Fish and Wildlife Service. They're pit tag. They got an external tag too, but we're also using a fin clip where we look at a chemical signature where we can actually look at, we catch you out of the river. Do you have a river signature? We catch you on the floodplain? Do we see a floodplain signature? And we can look at that by looking at carbon and nitrogen just from the fin clip. And at least that's a non-lethal way of doing it.
Yeah.
So that's been helpful, and that's ongoing research. We're going there in October to do that.
So they went up that system into Illinois.
Yeah.
And now how far up are they?
They're still up in Illinois. I think Hennepin and Hopper Lakes, there's some lakes up there. They seem to be doing well there because I guess there's like a nuclear plant or something, so it keeps it a bit warmer. So some of those fish are growing decent. But they don't mature until they're about 5 to 11 years old, depending on males or females. And we expect those ones further north are going to take longer to mature. We see that in other gar species as well.
Are they protected like up in the northern extreme of their range?
That's a great question. I think they're working towards protecting them because that was the issue. And we had that maybe five years ago where a bowfisher actually shot one of the restocked, one of the little guys that made it to be decent size.
Yep.
And luckily, she reported it and, we're able to see like, well, this might actually be kind of an issue where we might want to protect those fish, but you have to be able to identify the fish as well. And that's tricky with GARs. I get it. But at least being able to, then you need some sort of maybe blanket protection or maybe a harvest limit, right? That way you're not taking out all of them.
I would be very careful, just as advice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use the word protection.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna generate too much social friction.
Sure.
I would, if I was in your shoes, just long line of bow fishermen.
Yeah.
If I was in your shoes, I would be talking about putting a regulatory structure in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people they're gonna hear protection and their head's gonna go in a certain direction. But a regulatory structure.
Yeah.
Manage, regulate, whatever.
The same way all the other stuff, the same way all the birds, everything.
No, I agree with you. And that's the language we use anyway. Yeah. I think it depends on the audience we're talking to as well. But yeah, it's definitely more regulation and management. And even from our perspective, it's informing management, right? Yeah. We're doing the science. And we, been lucky to work with Minnesota DNR, who's been very receptive to, non-game native fish conservation and management because they don't have the data. So we go out there and we have that expertise coming off of 6 years in Louisiana and also several years in Michigan, where to find these fish, where to catch them, how to extract the otoliths, what kind of data we can get from them because, everybody's strapped for resources, whether you're state, federal, that sort of thing. So that's been helpful, but we can help, again, inform that management, give recommendations that, might help improve that sort of regulatory structure.
Yeah, I think an achievable goal would be that you would help fishermen, help them understand that we have this category we use to categorize fish that's not a great category. And that we should understand that there are these problematic invasive fish that people brought from far away that we wish weren't in the systems. We have these fish that have always been here, right? And we should make sure they're always here. And so we draw a distinction between these and these. And with GARs, and I don't know what the number is. With GARs is like you're allowed 2 or 5 a night or whatever the hell, just like you're allowed 2 or 5 bass a day, whatever. And just start kind of creating this idea that it's not all that these fish aren't damaging to the that they're not all damaging to the ecosystems,
Yeah.
And that the buffalo is like a big sucker that used to be a very sought after commercial fish. Yeah. And it shouldn't be ditched like carp.
Yeah.
Is there any examples of there being bounties on alligator gar, other gar? Did that ever happen?
I don't think, not in recent history. You go back to the 1930s, Texas Parks and Wildlife had the electrical gar destroyer that they made to just, they thought that, I think they were taking out I want to say it was water birds or something. And so, they basically rained this rig that was supposed to, kill all the gars.
Yeah,
And,
you use the term the Gar War.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
the Gar
so
Wars?
So Matt Miller is the director of science communications for the Nature Conservancy, a good friend of mine, and he wrote this book, Fishing Through the Apocalypse, which is great about fishing and conservation. And he brought up like this Gar Wars idea, but using that broadly, not just gars, but other non-game native fish, and even non-game isn't, that's relative as well. To look at just kind of providing some respect for these fish. Again, looking at the North American model of wildlife conservation, where we're looking at, having the best science available, and then also not hunting these animals or using them for frivolous purposes. So if you're going to shoot it, if you're going to kill it, eat it. And, they taste delicious. I think with that also, we've got the opportunity to reach the next generation, which is important if we want to preserve that hunting and fishing and show that there's value. So there's two directions I want to go with that, but there's opportunity, right? So you go to a spot that may not be the best for rainbow trout or walleye or bass, but a lot of these habitats have plenty of gars, bowfins, suckers. So there's opportunity for fishing that people may not have if they don't have a boat to go after walleye or to go after bass. So we're trying to introduce other opportunities for fishing, again, to look at, both conservation and management and just better stewardship of our natural resources, but to conserve that recreational way of life. And so if we don't do that, that's going to start slipping away. We can go on and on about how people are, on screens more than outside. And one of the ways that we've done that is working with the anglers, whether they're bow fishers or whether they're, catch and release or hook and line anglers. We did this with bowfin and my lab just a couple months ago this summer, where a bunch of anglers that know how to catch bowfin, some of them never caught them before, but they got together and I said, hey, can you catch us some bowfin that we can use for our research? And I brought my research team with me, and these are all, undergrads and grad students. They also were able to catch bowfin. They really had a blast. Like some of them, they're from Minnesota. They were able to fish walleye and fish bluegill, but they never caught bowfin before, and they really got into that. And then the anglers got to learn about, well, if you're going to help us out, here's what we want as far as a measurement and a photograph and a fin clip. So really building that relationship with the anglers. And we're doing that with the bow fishers too. Looking at where are these lakes where you might be doing some bow fishing tournaments. Can we at least use the carcasses to get the data to look at the age structure of those fish? So we're definitely not looking to end bow fishing or to stop that sort of recreational aspect. But we're looking to, can we manage it sustainably to where we can have the fish in the water doing their jobs as, ecosystem services, balancing, predator-prey populations, but then also you can go there and you can shoot the fish, hopefully eat them sustainably. So, kind of everybody wins. And so far we've made progress with that, even with a lot of the bow fishers.
Have you guys seen, besides alligator gar getting extirpated from native range, have you seen any other fish that people categorize as a rough fish? Are there any records of other fish being extirpated?
That's a good question. I think there's plenty. I mean, you've got the spotted gar in Michigan. So that's considered a species of concern. Now, it's not endangered or threatened. It is considered endangered in Pennsylvania. So there are places, so state by state, there's places where you might consider a spotted gar to be protected. And in other states, it's just we don't know enough about them. But now we know that they can live for over 40 years. So we've lagged so far behind. So I think that's a great question. Where have we seen them extirpated? Quite honestly, we don't have enough data in a lot of places to tell, are they still here? Are they gone? Why might they have gone? We like to say, like, we're about 100 years behind what we know about trout and salmon and walleye. We don't have to take 100 years to catch up on that. So what we're trying to do is use those methods that you've all learned about for managing smallmouth bass, largemouth bass. How do we apply that to these data deficient species? So again, working together to more sustainable management with that stuff. So honestly, we don't know. We could be losing populations and not know it because we aren't accounting for the harvest of those fish.
That brings up a really interesting ecology point that my brother Danny raised to me. He's with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Alaska, works on salmon. Cool. And we were talking about, I brought this up before. We're talking about the difference between the lower 48 and Alaska in terms of, we're speaking about fisheries, but you could almost apply it to like conservation in general, where he was just like, not in a publication form, just talking casually. He was saying that like the lower 48 is kind of like in recovery mode, right? Like conservation in the lower 48 is like largely about recovery. he said in Alaska, in big parts of Alaska, we're still in the descriptive phase. We're still trying to be like, what's here?
Yeah.
Right? There's salmon runs that like people know. It's like people don't know. I mean, people have been utilizing the salmon runs for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, but no one's put their arms around it yet.
Right.
No one's been like, okay, what does it look like in 2020? What does the run look like in 2021? You know what I mean? Like measuring, trying to put some kind of number around like what is here.
Right.
So a lot of the work, they'll do work of just trying to describe what's here.
Yeah.
Which makes the recovery mode, it lets you track change over time. But what you're saying about Gar almost like contradicts that, because if you look, there probably are things down here that we haven't done the discovery mode on because we just disregarded it or lumped it into some goofy classification to the point where you might later say, we don't know where they lived.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of old people talk about seeing them, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
How accurate is that?
Yeah.
Can't find one now, because no one ever measured it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great analogy. I think we're very much still in the discovery phase, but also in a recovery phase too, because we don't know where they've been, overfished or where it's a combination. Again, it's not just harvest, but it's, the modification of those habitats.
Sure.
So I think we're playing catch up. And, we're just trying to, make the best that we can. And that's why sort of encouraging the value of these native species to sort of then promote our ability to research them, to get multiple stakeholders involved, whether it's the bow fishers, the hook and line anglers, the state and federal agencies. And I think there is momentum towards that. And to do that, we want to communicate effectively and want to build those relationships, not shooting people down with like, you shouldn't be doing this or this should be stopped. And that's a big part of our sort of science communication aspect of it. So, and we appreciate the work that you all do for that, because I think we need a multifaceted approach to make that happen before we, lose what we didn't even know we had.
Yeah.
Do you know examples of other parts of the world that are being wrecked by our native rough fish, the way carp are like disturbing our waterways? Like over in Germany, the shorthead red horse is just ripping up their creeks or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned, so there's two parts of that. Yes, our fish are wrecking plenty of habitats in other places, but it's not our native rough fish. It's our game fish. Largemouth bass, steelhead, bluegill. I mean, rainbow trout's one of the most widely distributed species of fish in the world. I know, fishermen that go down to Argentina to fish for steelhead. I'm like, what? I would rather find out what fish are actually there and then, go for those. So it's mainly our game fish because, we like to take the fish that we like and take them to other places. Now, as far as gars go, they have been introduced, not on purpose, relatively speaking, through the aquarium trade. And so in some places where they've released them, there's a couple parts of India, there's parts of Southeast Asia where they've made their way into waterways. Oh, yeah, you can go...
Oh, man, dudes in Southeast Asia are buying gar from here to turn loose in their aquarium and then dumping them?
They're mainly wanting to keep them in their aquarium, but then when they get too big, because believe it or not, alligator gars get big. So it's a big aquarium fish. They're super popular. Gars, and then they've got arowanas down there too.
That's badass. That's a good fish. Though,
yeah, exactly.
That's a bowfishing fish. Yeah.
And how are our gar doing in those other places?
In most places, they're not doing great because they don't have enough to sort of create a sustainable population, a self-sustaining population. But there are a couple spots, I've seen it in India through videos sent to me, where they have spawned. Now, sure, that could be problematic, but it's probably something that's still controllable.
Are you cheering for them?
I mean, I know. I feel kind of like, I also feel like, who better to take care of alligator gars in India than an Indian dude you could send out there. So maybe it's just job security. We'll see. But I think, but in other places, they've kind of tracked, alligator gars have been released. There was, I think, a moat around some sort of palace or castle in Japan where an alligator gar was released. And so they had their version of Fish and Wildlife trying to catch this gar out of there for a while. And so you'll hear stories about
they put it in there to keep intruders out?
I know, right? Yeah, it's not gonna work that way.
Is there I'm sure people have been bitten by mistake, like in muddy water. But is there claims of them ever attacking?
There's very, very few records of even the mistaken identity. I think there was something that happened a couple years ago. There was, I think, a woman in Texas or Louisiana had stepped near an alligator gar and got tagged by it, but that was it. And it was pretty foggy details around that. But other than that, gars they definitely are not attacking people. They're very gape limited. So even a fish like that.
I was going to ask, how big can he get this guy I'm holding?
Exactly. That was probably about a 5-foot long fish, give or take, maybe 4.5, 5 feet. But you look at that mouth isn't, it's not going to fit anything further down that throat.
That's as far as it can open.
I mean, it can open wide up and down, but that throat doesn't open up very much. So they're very gape limited. So they're not going to, they can't swallow a person or anything like that. Even a big alligator, the biggest one we've caught in our research was 8 feet 1 inch long, just a couple inches off of the known, world record fish. But we did pull a 3-foot long carp out of the stomach of that fish.
Really?
I've got a picture of my student who
that sucker got a 3-foot carp down
yeah, it was mostly it was partially digested to where it was just a lump of flesh. Like
so they could get someone's like house poodle or something.
I mean, it's
Brody's
possible.
Brody's trying to pump them up now.
Keep your dogs on leashes, I guess. But yeah.
How are gator gar doing in Mexico?
They're doing well in Mexico. They're native in Mexico, and in Mexico you've got the alligator gar and the tropical gar, which are big time food fish down there. So you go into the Tabasco region, Tabasco state in Mexico, which there was a gar conference there. Believe it or not, they do happen. In 2012, tropical gar stuff was in the little shops there. They were in the restaurants. We had tropical gar empanadas, tamales. We roasted them to where they were just gutted, but you could put them on the grill, and then the scales just flake right off. So
how big are they?
Those tropical gars on the grill were probably about maybe 1.5 feet long, but they get to 3.5, 4 feet long as well. So they're looking like there. What's not as long as but they're fatter than the long nose. That's a stouter fish because that's related to alligator gar. Long noses are in a different genus, so they're the skinnier gars, like your short nose and your spotted. But it's as important of a food fish there as salmon are in the Pacific Northwest. So not only have they depleted the wild populations in some places, then they're aquaculturing them to restore those wild populations. So Cuba and parts of Mexico are actually good templates for gar aquaculture and restoration. Everything we know, like through Fish and Wildlife Service, not everything, but the starting to what we know came from those places where people are already culturing those fish to try to restore alligator gar, bring them back in certain populations.
So they're not using the term rough fish down there?
No,
that's fish.
It's a big food fish. Yeah.
Huh.
You spend a lot of time working in Minnesota at the edge of the Mississippi watershed. And in 2017, there was an American eel caught at Cottonwood Lake in Minnesota, which was 30 miles off of the Mississippi River even. So it has the potential to collect some fish that are far away from what you'd consider to be their home up there. What are some of the unique things you've caught in Minnesota?
Gotcha. In Minnesota so far, I mean, we're still focusing a lot on the gars and the bowfins because the DNR typically isn't paying attention to them the same way that they're paying attention to the walleye and the bass. So I feel like that's some of our unique fish. We do get the blue sucker, which is found all the way down in Texas too, but that's a pretty unique fish. They look kind of like a shark, kind of a grayish looking. If you had a shark version of a sucker, that's what they look like.
I'm not familiar with that fish. How big is it?
They get probably not quite 3 feet long, but I mean you're looking at probably about decent sized fish.
And they're deeply blue, especially when they're spawning.
Yeah.
They have a tall dorsal fin on them. They're threatened in South Dakota. We used to raise them at the hatchery.
Yeah, very cool fish. And, they stay in the midwater and midstream. A lot of some ichthyologists and also anglers call them a unicorn fish because it's very difficult to catch them because it's a sucker. So you got to fish for them, right? They got that ventral mouth.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah. So blue sucker, we can, you come up to Minnesota, we could probably show you some. So they're putting trackers in some of them to find out where they go. So DNR is doing that. They've done that with some of the long-nosed gars. So it's finding out where some of those fish are moving as well, tracking the invasive carp where they're going. I'm trying to think as far as unique stuff, we did find, through some of those bowfin that half of a large rat in the stomach, which shows that bowfin will eat just about anything. I tell the students, just like with the plankton, to let me know when there's something interesting you find in the stomach. And so I was coming back to the lab and showing somebody the lab, and I said, did you find anything interesting? They said, yeah, we found a rat in the stomach. And I'm like, well, where is it? I said, I need to see a picture or find it. It was already in the carcass bin and stuff. I'm like, you're going to have to fish that out of here so we can
Those
can
bowfins
see that.
are getting your muskrats.
Yep. You sure it wasn't a muskrat?
I mean, it was the only posterior end of it, so I mean, I couldn't tell you.
Tail?
I'll send you the picture. Maybe you can get an idea. It did have a tail. Yeah.
What are the little bumps that some suckers get when they're spawning? Blue suckers would really get those on their
tubercles. Yeah. So they get the spawning tubercles on them, and so buffalo will get those too. A lot of different types of minnows. Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting fish there. I haven't seen any eels there yet. When we're down in Louisiana, we saw eels all the time. So I think that's what's been interesting is having worked in Louisiana for 6 years, now being in Minnesota, we're just following the Mississippi River further up to the top. But that's also what some of our research is doing, is looking at those gar and buffalo populations down south. We've learned about their life history, some of the population structure, and we can look at gars and buffalo up north and then compare northern and southern populations. And one of the things we want to do is, like, can we start forecasting about climate change, how that might change things, right? Because we've got fish that are adapted to a warmer climate down south that we know about. How might the ones in the north start potentially changing? But then, you've got your cold water fish that are going to be affected by that as well. But, we don't have walleye way down south. So that's why the gars and the bowfins and the buffalo can be useful for that kind of research as well. So again, we're trying to use them as sort of these multifaceted tools to tackle management, conservation, even climate science.
What are these northern gars doing under the ice? Like, I've never in my life even heard of someone catching one through the ice.
Yeah, it happens. I've got a couple pictures that people have sent me. It's still on my bucket list to get a gar through the ice.
So you've heard of people getting a hit in the ice?
They're just kind of chilling under there, no pun intended. But there's places in Iowa where I've got video of that too, where the guy cut, made his, cut through the ice, dropped the camera down,
ice hole.
and it's just this ice hole there. Yeah. And then just a bunch of short-nosed gars just hanging out below there. Like, I mean, probably 50 or 60
moving around.
Yeah, just, kind of slowly waving their fins, but metabolism slows down. They're still going to eat, but they're congregating there, and they also are air breathers. But when the water's that cold, as long as they find well oxygenated water, they don't have to go up for air there. But so they're there. Bowfin are there under the ice too. So that's still on the list to check out.
Can I ask you a snap and turtle question?
Sure. I was into turtles before I was into gars, actually. So
okay. Years ago, I was at the National Trappers Association convention in Iowa. And I went to a lecture by a turtle trapper.
Okay.
Can't remember his name is. He had a thing hanging from, he had like a necklace that was like a pouch made out of a big old turtle foot.
Okay.
Big time into turtles. Turtle trapper. But he got into raising turtles. He was saying, and I've told people this 1,000 times that this is true. He was saying that a turtle in the winter, so it's iced over. Like, normally he comes up and sticks his head out of the water and gets a gulp. Yeah. But everything's locked in ice. He was saying.
I think I know where this is going.
Is it true?
Yes, it is. If you're talking about cloacal respiration.
Well, I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
He was saying that turtle can go down in the muck. He can burrow down in the muck and push himself up. And it sends bubbles of methane out of the muck. He says he's seen this in a wetsuit. It sends methane bubbles by disturbing the muck, and it goes up to the ice. And like he was saying that somehow like the CO2 can leach through the ice. And then he'll wait, and eventually he'll go up and sip. He'll go up and sip that bubble. He says he's watched it.
That's not what I thought with the cloacal respiration. That's where they just basically breathe through their butts and stuff. So that's how they get gas exchange there. But I've not heard about the methane bubble.
I tell
that
people
go up
like
and
it's
it go
true.
below the ice surface. And then what was the advantage there? It would just you get some sort of conversion.
Picture you stir the muck up, all that gas comes up.
Yeah.
Well, somehow he was explaining, and I need to talk. Like I was hoping you could help me. He's explaining that certain. Like some gas goes through the ice. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But if it waits, he'll eventually go up and he'll sip that bubble.
To what end? Is he sipping
Because he's got to
methane?
breathe. 'Cause he can't stick his head out of the water.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be some sort of organic chemistry
it's methane,
situation.
not
Yeah, right.
oxygen.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he
There's
was
no
saying
oxygen
by
other
the
than
I know, but that's why you got to listen to what I'm talking about. He was saying that like by that bubble sitting there for some period of time goes through some transformation. How is that
CH3
stupid?
is
How
your
is that
methane.
stupid?
Yeah,
You think
yeah.
like a methane bubble will just live there chemically stable for the rest of its life?
I don't know. Like
Okay.
we'd have to.
So what
I
he's
don't think
positing-
a methane bubble turns into
Yeah,
oxygen.
exactly right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to have a gas
Yeah,
expert on the show.
Yeah.
Methane into...
Some Googling going on.
You never heard this?
Yeah, I've not heard that.
He was talking about raising turtles and eventually got so into it that he was observing them with a wetsuit in the winter, trying to understand winter behavior. And he's talking about them, in his mind, deliberately stirring the bottom, and then going up and sipping the bubbles.
Yeah.
So if you're calling him a liar,
I'm not calling
Well,
him a
maybe
liar.
it's not methane they're kicking up. Maybe it's octane.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Methane can be converted into oxygen and other chemicals like carbon dioxide and water through oxidation, which is often a highly exothermic reaction that requires high temperatures or catalysts.
Or ice. Or a turtle.
yeah, exactly. Maybe the turtle's doing something.
Never heard that one.
Yeah, no, I've not heard that
it.
one. But they're surviving somehow. So
yeah, it's just one of them things that like sticks in your head your whole life, and you just wind up telling everybody about it.
Now I know. I got a new
and
turtle
then
story.
Eventually, you're like, but is that true?
Here, inertness of methane. Methane is a very stable and inert molecule, and breaking the strong carbon-hydrogen bonds requires significant energy input or specific catalyst.
Like
to
setting it on
initiate
fire.
Usually applied to turtles. Is there a chance that is there a chance, like when you're stirring the bottom up, like when you walk like you duck hunting every step, like bubbles coming out of there?
Yeah.
Is there a chance there's oxygen hiding down there?
That's the thing. I'm like, it may not, he might be talking about methane because that's what he knows, but you're probably stirring up all kinds of other gas or byproducts of that, of the bacteria and all the muck on the bottom. So I think the story holds. It just may not be methane. That's
I might have made up that part.
Or, then that sounds legit. Then, I mean, if you've got your own additions of the story, I can't judge that.
What I know I didn't make up. What I know I didn't make up is him talking about turtles.
Yeah.
Disturbing the bottom in his mind. And I remember, and the bubbles would come up. He talked about that. He explained something that he thinks happens, but I don't remember what. And then the turtles would sip it.
That part sounds.
Remember we were trying to get that
feasible.
snapper turtle expert on the show, Corinne?
Was that a few years
Might have been
ago?
before your time. And we wound up getting his kid.
Oh.
We didn't get his kid. We couldn't get the old man. We could have got the
that
kid.
probably wasn't me. I probably wouldn't have gotten a kid.
Tell me the
on.
kid said I like turtles on you
Do we need a revisit?
Well, there's two things that have evaded us. A Neanderthal expert.
I know.
I even pitched that on Theo Vaughn's show and got that one guy reached out. A Neanderthal expert and someone who's real good on turtles. Real good. And understands that what I'm talking about.
I could get you some Rex too. Yeah.
Like real good on turtles.
Real good on turtles. Yeah. Especially like snapping turtles, even alligator snapping turtles.
Yeah.
But common
real
snappers.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm talking to a Neanderthal guy at some point, hopefully soon.
How good are you on Neanderthals?
He must be really old.
So that would come.
I'm not going to ask you a Neanderthal question. So they're active and they feed.
Yeah.
And then let's take an alligator gar. How many eggs is he kicking out?
I mean, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
She's kicking out,
Sorry.
Right.
And then how are those getting fertilized? What happens?
That's external fertilization. So, you have what you call polyandry. So that's more males than females. You might have one or two females, but it's usually one big female and a bunch of males. They'll kind of cluster together. And that's also usually over terrestrial vegetation. So they need that flood pulse to do that.
So they're creating a cloud of milk.
Yeah.
And she's laying her eggs, and they're just fertilizing by being in the cloud.
The eggs, as they are being laid, are very sticky, so they actually adhere to that vegetation. So it's not necessarily broadcast and it's just going into the water column. It's basically attaching to that vegetation.
She's applying them.
Yeah. And then, with that spawning, though, and part of our other research is that we found down in Texas and other places, longnose gars, your apparent favorite gar, get into that mix, and you get hybrids between longnose and alligator gars.
Long alligators.
Yeah. So you get an alligator gar that's got a longer snout, kind of nickname them crocodile gars, because it's a little bit longer snout action there. But that's across genera. So you've got two species of gar that are producing hybrids, which happens in fish.
Okay.
But not only are they two different species, they're two different genera that diverged about 100 million years ago. So they split from each other a long time ago.
And are their offspring sexually viable?
That's the thing. So that's what makes it also, unique or relatively unique is that their offspring are fertile. So you've got these two species that can produce fertile offspring that split over 100 million years ago. The next closest organisms that can do that is two species of ferns that split 65 million years ago. So what that suggests to us is that their DNA is that compatible over splitting that long ago. So their evolutionary rates being that slow. And that goes into some of the work we've done looking at gars actually have the slowest rates of molecular evolution of any vertebrate with a jaw. So you rule out your lampreys and your hagfish.
Yep.
Slower, the next closest is sturgeons, but they are changing slower than coelacanths, lungfish, tuatars, crocodilians, sharks, any of those things. So with that hybridization, though, that suggests to us that their DNA is that compatible. So something might be maintaining that compatibility of the DNA. Something might be correcting it. So, evolution happens by mutations, right? So a couple base pairs change, so it changes. You might get something that's advantageous or deleterious, whatever. With GARs, it seems like that DNA code has been staying pretty consistent for millions and millions of years. And what we hypothesize is that there might be something like a DNA repair mechanism that when a mutation pops up, it's correcting that mutation, just setting back to what it's supposed to be. So if you think of like a game of telephone where you've got message on both ends, one's very different at the end of it from the beginning, right? Think of almost a perfect game of telephone where something's correcting it over and over and over again. So one of the things we're looking at is like, can we isolate or identify what these potential DNA repair mechanisms could be? Because think about even in human health, how many diseases are based on out of control DNA replication or damage to DNA, whether you're thinking about things like even skin cancer, other types like that. So that's very far off in the future, but that hybridization between alligator gars and longnose gars, or actually any gar species can hybridize, is a potential biomedical value as well.
So what prevents it from becoming why hasn't it just become a uni-species?
Right, exactly. That's a great question. So we kind of joke that like either there's one species of gar or there's maybe 100 species of gars. But you think about it with dog breeds, right? Dogs all one species, but look at all the variation there. Gars are just changing at such a different rate relative to our, way of thinking that, to them, maybe they are one species. They're just slight variations on a basic blueprint. We don't know what that is. But that's just another area of research we're looking into, but that adds value to these fish. You take buffalo. I know you all had Alec Lackman on one of the previous shows with fishing and stuff. The buffalo can live for over 100 years. We know that. But since then, since 2019, when you all were talking to him.
The buffalo sucker can live 100 years?
Buffalo sucker can live over 100 years.
One's in Minnesota.
One's in Minnesota.
Really?
Even Saskatchewan, 125 years.
No.
There's one. So buffalo story I can tell you is that some of the buffalo during World War I, they wanted to, ship more meat products, food products overseas. And so they wanted people stateside to eat less meat because they need all those resources to go towards the war effort. So they wanted to encourage people to eat more fish.
Okay.
And so in order to get people to eat more fish, they're building all these new reservoirs in the southwestern United States, the Roosevelt Reservoir down southwest. And so some states, including Iowa, shipped a bunch of game fish, including some non-game fish like buffalo, over down to the Apache Lake down in Roosevelt Reservoir, that area, around 1917. Some of those fish are still alive today.
No way.
And they've gone back and looked at some of the offspring, which were born around the 1920s, still alive today.
Wow.
And they've done all kinds of aging with the otoliths, radiocarbon dating. So sure, those are introduced species there, but we introduce them. But some anglers go there, they know them by the different spot patterns and stuff. But what they've also been able to find, looking at their physiology, their health has actually improved with old age. Their immune system function, senescence, the sort of DNA breakdown that we all have as we get older, they don't show that. So you've got these native rough fish like gars that they've got this DNA that's been staying coherent for millions and millions of years, potentially with the DNA repair mechanism. You've got buffalo, which actually are improving with age. You're talking 80-year-old, 100-year-old fish.
Just kicking ass.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to learn about these fish. Yeah, exactly. Combine the two, you can live forever and get better with age,
I got an angling question.
Sure.
Maybe not for alligator gar because they have a degree of popularity for fishermen, but the other species, if one was wanting to set a world record, are gar one of those species that just kind of get ignored, and there's a bunch of like open line class records? Yeah.
Even in Minnesota, they've got catch and release records that are open to a bunch of non-game native fish. And I think the bowfin one was just set this past summer. It was like a 31-incher.
Yeah. Because no dudes had ever put in for it.
Yeah, I mean, not as much anyway. But yeah, down south, you get some big long-nosed gars. We actually got the biggest long-nose I'd ever seen with my students out at Nicholls State when I was down in Louisiana, was a 60-incher. And later that summer, I think somewhere else in Louisiana, they got a 65-incher. But that is right along the records
because there's
for those guys.
Some fishermen that just look for unfilled line class world records.
That's a good spot to go for, the line classes, the different size overall. Yeah, and that's worth, going after. I would say if you do shoot it, find a way to get us the otolith because we want to age that fish. So
they got some skulls getting their otolith. That's got to be a process.
Yeah,
Dude, this skull, I can't stop messing with this
You have to use a hammer and a chisel for alligator gars. I mean, it's just, and we're working with skulls that are huge too.
It's like what are your buddy up at the shack when he was chopping open those yellow eyes to get their otolith. That was work.
Yeah, it's messy business. But
how'd you do this skull? This skull's amazing.
Yeah, that's with some formaldehyde. You probably get maybe some. That's good. That's good.
So you did what now?
We get the skull. So we got it from Alligator Gar Rodeo down in Louisiana.
Okay.
So that was great. It's another opportunity to work with stakeholders there.
Why'd they shoot it with 22?
Because they jug line for them first. So when you get the fish and it's alive, they want to find ways to dispatch the gar quickly. Yeah. I'm always curious as to how they're doing that on a boat and not misfiring and hitting the bottom of the boat or something, but they use the 22.
Shoot over the edge of the boat.
I guess so. I've never seen it. We get them when they bring them in. So, but you got to figure you got these big fish. You're not usually hanging that kind of gar you might hang over the edge of the boat, but if you're hanging the head of a 6-footer, 7-footer over the edge of your boat, you might be losing that fish.
I told you earlier I've got a lingcod head that I want to do, but like the general public can't just get their hands on formaldehyde.
Could you buy formaldehyde? Like a jug of formaldehyde?
That's a good question. I can buy formaldehyde, but I don't know. I think
type up buying a jug.
I swear I looked into it once and you couldn't
get out Amazon.
Why don't they want people to have formaldehyde?
In the freezer.
I mean, it's a carcinogen. I mean,
so you take the gar's head, fresh off the gar.
Yeah.
And then you do what?
Those we eventually put on ice so we could store them for a bit. We thaw them out, and then once we thaw them, we pry the jaws open, usually wedge something in there because, the natural state of the gar isn't with the jaws wide open like that. And then we put them in a formaldehyde bath for like maybe 2-3 days, depending on the size of the fish. And then we take it out, we put it in a cooler with water, and we just change that water bath a few times, and we just let it air dry. But you can do that with a regular fish. You could set it outside. You could drive
a nail with this thing.
Yeah, I've salted pike heads and let them dry, but that
would work way better than pike too. Because pike are still, they got a lot of flesh, along the skull, whereas a gar skull, I mean, that's say the skull.
Can you buy that stuff?
We may have to communicate with Montana State University. So purchasing a jug of formaldehyde solution requires a specialized chemical supplier. Right. It's not available for purchase at retail stores and is regulated by the EPA and OSHA due to health risks, including cancer. We need to demonstrate a legitimate use.
Just need a dealer.
So we might need to, like anyone at MSU, get some contacts there.
There you go.
Well,
trade in formaldehyde.
I was going to bring this up with you, Corinne.
Is that illegal?
You still have those tuna heads in that freezer. You need to deal with them or get your formaldehyde.
I thought Alec got some and made soup with them.
Are the collars attached?
Yeah.
I'd take one.
Yeah.
I don't think they
are. Is it just the head? We've also got those.
We cleaned them up.
We've also got those fetuses in there too.
This is a work of art.
I mean, hope you all appreciate that. We couldn't bring a big one in the suitcase or anything.
Show me a big one.
Work,
with your hands. What's a big one?
Big one. You're looking at about that big.
Really?
I think we had some pictures in there. I'll send them to you. But that 8-footer was a pretty big skull. It got trapped in the net, so that one had unfortunately died. But we were able to get the otoliths. I was 56 years old. Mm-hmm. But there you're looking at a 8-foot-long fish that was 56. It could have easily been 100. When they get that big, they aren't growing, very much each year. But this is out of the coastal Louisiana. So we had 6-footers that were 20 years old. I want to say we probably had a 6.5-footer that might have been, 20, 21. So they get big, but that's where working with the rodeo was very helpful because we could get all the data we wanted. They let us just have at it. They were cutting the heads off for us. They were getting us, any of the samples of the muscle tissue, the fins. And then they also cleaned them there. It was at a bar. It was at Manny's Bar on the Maurepas, off Lake Maurepas, the Amite River. And people would come from all over that general region, and they'd be eating this fried alligator gar. They make gar balls, which are like hush puppies.
Man, that's why I like Cajuns, man. Yeah. Those Cajun dudes eat everything.
I mean, but Gar's good. They got the big back straps. And the thing is, they invited us back year after year because they wanted to know what we were finding out. And we wanted to, work with them and share that info with them too. So you've got multiple stakeholders. We weren't there to say, you got to stop doing this. We were there to, learn about the resource. How can we figure out about the health of the population? We've been invited back every year. I couldn't make it this year because coming down from Minnesota is a little bit tougher. But next year, we plan on going back down there. So if you ever want to, send somebody to jump in on a gator gar rodeo, we'll be there. But I think that's a good opportunity to, again, work with stakeholders, work with the people that are using the resource for different purposes.
This is my last question for you. They might have more. When you have like Trout Unlimited, Ducks Unlimited, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, right? They put tons of money into habitat work. They put tons of money into research. Who who out there? What NGOs are put any money into GAR?
Right. As far as a definite NGO, nobody. I think we're lucky that we can try to go after grants from different organizations. Minnesota has a lottery tax that goes into their Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund.
Okay.
And so we apply for that. We've been lucky to get support from the state then to look at these native rough fish. So that's been extremely beneficial. And a few other states have, stuff like that too.
But there's no GAR enthusiast group.
You're looking at it, Steve. It's and then there's Native Fish for Tomorrow, which is a nonprofit group that is promoting the value of these fish. But we're all kind of cobbled together. They're out of Minnesota as well.
Native Fish for Tomorrow?
Yeah. So Tyler Winter is one of their main spokespersons. He also had a response to that article. But again, promoting eating the fish, fishing for the fish. But again, that's advocacy. I mean, through the grants that we're getting, we're partnering with them to provide them funding. So we're kind of trying to get what money we can to work on that stuff. But doing things like this, the work you all do, gets that message out more about the value of these fish. But again, being able to convince, it was the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. They support our work down on the Mississippi River floodplain in Mississippi. Working with Nature Conservancy, U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So it's a bunch of partners usually coming together.
Yep.
So I've been kind of selling the idea of we can use GAR to answer these questions or to get at this type of restoration. But it really is advocating for the species and then trying to find the funds to back that research and then show that these are, again, valuable organisms.
Yeah, because it's the new fountain of youth.
Right, yeah.
Once you figure out a couple of them little tricks.
I will say that the biomedical value of the fish has bolstered that value. Spotted gar, actually, out of Michigan, is where we looked at that, comparing them, and also in Louisiana. The gar genome is actually organized closer to the human genome than it is to other fish, like your walleye and your trout. So because of that sort of ancient lineage, they've got a lot of stuff that's in common with, other sides of the evolutionary tree.
I do got one more question.
All right.
What is the toxin that's in those eggs?
That is a great question. We've been trying to answer that for well over a decade. We think it might be sequestered from bacteria, but we don't know exactly. There's actually current work being done at Nichols State and at LSU on that right now. We did some preliminary work on that a few years ago. So we think it comes from bacteria, mainly in the eggs. And what's also unique about that toxin is it's toxic to birds, to mammals, to arthropods like crayfish and crickets, but it's not toxic to fish. So why, if you're a fish, would you have, eggs that aren't toxic to the other animals that are there?
So bluegill can suck that egg up.
I've got videos of bluegill eating long-nosed gar eggs as the long-nosed are laying them. So that kind of brings full circle to this game fish and non-game fish. You're actually supporting these giant bluegill. And what we think is because gars evolutionarily they live in these warm waters, right? They breathe air. So most of your regular, traditionally respiring fish like bluegill and bass aren't going to live in those low oxygen waters. But you do have a lot of crawfish. You have a lot of water birds. You got a lot of small mammals there. So it'll kill the crawfish. It'll kill the birds. It'll
Have you ever actually given it to a mouse and seen him die?
I haven't given it to him. There are experiments that have been done. They've given it to turtles too, where it's slowed down the heart rate, and so they have done experiments with those eggs.
It's fatal. How much later?
With
I mean, I know it's
Depending on
hard to generalize.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on how much you're consuming with that stuff.
But like quick or days later?
With crayfish, it's pretty quick. Like they basically, you'll see them eating them and they just slow down and they just stop.
What?
In parts of the country, like down, like where the Cajuns are eating these things, is that like a no? Like people know?
Oh
not
yeah,
to,
yeah. It's you know, they know how to clean them there, but it's available on the thing called the internet, right? But you'll still see pop up every few years. These people got violently ill from eating a bunch of gar
from
eggs.
eating the roe.
From eating the roe, yeah. They thought maybe I'm going to try to eat these because you get a big long-nosed gar. There's a lot of eggs in there. You can eat bowfin caviar. They make that. They call it Cajun caviar. I've heard it's not as good. Not surprisingly.
You know what?
But,
I've heard of that too.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, but you can't do that with the gars. So I mean, you're not going to die,
heard of
but
that
you're going to have a
bowfin
bad
caviar.
day. Yeah.
We're trying to get a caviar specialist.
Ah, nice.
methane specialist
yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's gonna be a short episode.
We can double up on some of those.
I got one question. Are you from the north?
I got 2 comments from earlier. We were talking about the native range of an alligator gar. The USGS says it goes following the Ohio River almost to West Virginia.
What?
And then the Mississippi almost to Iowa. So like deep into the Midwest.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
native to.
Seriously?
They're trying to bring them back in Kentucky. They have found them in parts of Ohio and Indiana along the Ohio River. So they think that the one that was, I think, found in Indiana was part of restoration, either in Ohio or in Kentucky. But yeah, they're in the Ohio River.
Are they maybe just not getting like 5, 6, 7 feet long, so people just aren't like noticing them?
They had big ones down in Horseshoe Lake in Illinois. Like I want to say it was like early 1900s. That biggest one that they got, like towards the end of their run before they're fully extirpated, was like a 5 or 6 foot long fish. So they get big.
Man. I had just no idea.
We've
about
actually
that.
found gars in the north get bigger, like long-term maximum size, than the fish in the south. Like that's looking at spotted gars. So they've got the growth rate that has to be able to compensate for winter, but we do find on average they live longer and they can get bigger. Alligator gar, we just don't know enough because we wiped them out from the north. So we'll have to see.
It's almost like deer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Other comment was, Steve, you were asking about traditional use of gar. When I would give tours at the hatchery and we would get to the gar section, I'd try to make people think they were cool. Some native tribes would use their scales for currency or jewelry. And then some of the early white settlers would line the front of their plows with gar skin because it could break through tough dirt.
Really?
So there's some historical use.
It's super tough.
Question, Solomon. What is like an aquarium you really like as a native rough fish man, where you walk in, you're like, no way, they have a
Trash fish man.
quillback. They have a river carp sucker here.
Yeah. I would say the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga does an amazing job with freshwater fish. They've got a whole building that's all freshwater. They built another one that's marine, which I think is cool, but I was there for a conference last year. I visited the aquarium 3 times during that conference.
Wow.
Only went to the freshwater one. They let me feed the gars down there too. So shout out to Tennessee Aquarium. Shed Aquarium, I was a postdoc there. And so they've got a good freshwater setup too. Tennessee's better, but Shed does have some of my gars that I had in grad school that I couldn't rehome when I moved to Chicago. So if you go to Shed Aquarium and you see any gars, most of those are mine from grad school, over 10 years ago.
No kidding.
And I sent him paddlefish to the Shed Aquarium.
Yeah.
About a decade
way
ago.
back in the day,
In Minnesota, that's sort of like ground zero for these wakeboard studies or wake boat studies. Have you followed these at all?
I've not. I just know it's a topic that's come up when they're looking at new management. That's we got to look into it.
Oh, that's those boats. They weigh them all down with ballast and then make the big waves that destroy the shoreline.
You surf on them. Well, they're now like putting cameras underwater and seeing what it does to the bottom of the lake. And it appears to be like pretty devastating. A bomb went off.
Oh, I'd love it if they got rid of those things.
Yeah.
I was going to see if you had any thoughts on what those do to rough fish.
Yeah, I think whenever you're taking out habitat like that, that's problematic. And especially since a lot of the native rough fish like the near shore habitats. So when you're scouring out the bottom, increasing turbidity, that's bad for the plants. And even if they're not near shore, you're creating that wave action that's going to have stronger impacts also on the shore when you've got that vegetation. So I think, again, not being an expert on that myself, but I would say if it's damaging the habitat as they're describing them, that's going to be problematic for a lot of these fish.
Can you just imagine the conversation?
Oh, God.
In the wakeboard enthusiast community when someone says, hey, man, you can't do that anymore because of the gar.
Yeah.
You're setting me up.
No, I'd be like, yeah, you can't do it anymore because the gar.
They just make my boat bounce around a lot when I'm perch fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would be just like, oh my goodness gracious.
I don't think they're listening to this show.
No, I don't think they are. And frankly,
there'll be some
this is
that
my
are
message to the wakeboard enthusiast
good.
community.
Have you delivered a message before or not? This is your first statement to them.
I need to refine my message. My message is I'm on the lake bottom side of things.
Good. Yeah.
Man, who else got a question?
Do they regrow their teeth their whole lives, or they're constantly?
That is a great question. I think they can grow teeth, but it's not like sharks.
They're
So
not
we
just-
were at this rodeo, and a little kid, parents brought him up to us as we were processing these fish, and I'm there with Prasanta Chakrabarty, curator of fishes at LSU. So he and I are both there. He's an ichthyologist. I'm, a GAR person there. Little kid asked, "Can I have one of the teeth?" And so I'm like, "Sure." And so we take the pliers and we go to pull the tooth out of this jaw, and it's like really hard to get out of there. And we pulled it out, and it just goes down almost like a volcano underneath the water. We pulled that out, and we're looking at it. Me and Prasanta both. We've been studying fish for most of our lives. We're just like, huh? Like we had no idea that that's what it looked at, and we gave it to the kid. It made his day.
Right.
And his little brother came up, was like, "I want a tooth too." So then we were starting pulling teeth out of these things. So they do have an interesting structure there, and they do have something called dentine or plycodentine around those teeth, which is similar to the some of the developmental tooth parts that we have as well. So there's a lot of things from the fish that are kind of connected to us as well.
Yeah, because it seems like with those real long ones over time, like 50 years, they'd get broken and need to be.
With some of the big fish, they get broken. But in Michigan, when we'd be doing our spotted gar work, we would get what we call the crocodile effect, where you'd get gars where the teeth have grown from the bottom jaw and pierced the top of the
you
jaw.
can see
and they
that
fit
all
through
over.
there.
I know.
Yeah. So
he's got tooth holes in his jaw.
Yeah, well, some of those are
Or is that-
nostrils.
that's not what that- oh, that's
Actually, no,
nostril.
you're right. Those two where you can see the open hole going all the way down, those are the tooth holes for those lower fangs down there. Yeah.
It's like piranhas. They're like rows of teeth in there. Like
Yeah,
on
they
the
got
roof
a lot
the
of teeth,
mouth, right?
and they don't have a lot of bite force though. So they're more about they grasp and hold and then swallow the food, as opposed to piranhas and sharks, which are more of a cutting plane. Barracudas as well. But again, you look at those teeth, that's going to be intimidating. So there's a an aesthetic to them as well when you think about getting people interested in them alongside trout and walleye and bass.
Besides humans, what else are killing alligator gars?
Alligators to an extent, depending on the size. Once a gator gar is full size, nothing's really messing with it. Water birds will eat gars as well. Other fish, other gars will eat them. I mean, that's not, we find bowfin inside a bowfin too. So typically it's going to be other predatory fish, but usually like a bass or a walleye, they're not going to be able to take them down once they get to decent size. Nothing's getting through those scales really either.
Yeah.
You mentioned being of Indian descent. You're born in the U.S.
Yeah. My
Where were
parents
you
are from
born?
India. I was born in Washington State, Arlington, Washington, kind of farm town out far out of
Did you
Seattle.
fish as a kid?
I did. That's what I was going to ask you, like how we all got started fishing. I got started fishing, mainly on non-game fish. So I lived in Washington and then North Dakota for 8 years as a kid, and then Ohio is where I grew up. Caught creek chubs out of some random creek, and we'd ball up a piece of bread on a hook and then catch them that way. But I remember catching some perch in North Dakota, going out fishing. That was one of the first fish I remember catching. The state capitol had a big northern pike taxidermy there. I remember looking down the mouth of that and thinking those teeth were really cool. And I was into dinosaurs as well. So always getting outside. My dad would take me to the Stillaguamish River in Washington State. So we'd chuck rocks in there. So there was that connection to the water. So I enjoy fishing. I'm not good at fishing. My buddy Tyler Winter takes me out, so he can take me. He can get me where's the gar spot, where's the bowfin spot, so I can do that. He takes my kids out. They've caught red horse and some other non-game fish.
Yeah.
Of course, my kids know gars. They've known that for their whole lives. But I do think that's an important part of getting kids out into nature, getting them outdoors, and so that's also what we want to do. I would be remiss if I didn't say my introduction to gars was through Ranger Rick magazine, which is through the National Wildlife Federation.
Yeah, we used to get that when I was a kid.
Yeah, I got it for my kids too, and so that's what got me started. And I thought they were cool, but now we look at that as that's an opportunity to introduce kids to the outdoors. Also just getting them outdoors. So again, I like getting my kids out fishing and then helping them maybe reel it in, but I'm not a great angler. I like to, count on folks like you all for that. In grad school, I'm also not a hunter, but I am a consumer. So I just wasn't good at getting up early in the mornings. They go out hunting, for duck and deer, but I would eat all the food they brought back.
Sure.
We'd have game night and do that. So I'm a participant on some level, but I do recognize the importance.
How long have you been married?
9 years as of just a week and a half ago.
Same person?
Yep. We met at Shed Aquarium. So she was a grant writer. She's not a fish person, but she is bought into the Gar, the whole Gar thing.
Okay.
At our wedding, instead of escort cards, got the name tags for the table. She made escort guards, which are Gar figurines with the name tags them.
That's cute.
I did not know about it at all. So, she is all for it. She's got the Gar earrings. And so, again, we've got some, fish connections.
Did you guys
there.
go to Jurassic Park on your honeymoon?
I know, right? If it existed, we would do that, Brody. So, that's where the DNA is really going. We're trying to bring back Gars, but then it'll just look the same as what we have now. So it's going to...
Yeah, that'd be a real bummer.
Yeah.
Like,
millions of dollars in grant money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's a Gar.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for coming on the show.
Right, thanks for having me.
Tell people how to find your work if they want to come find it, or if they want to send you weird specimens or whatever.
Yeah, if they look up GarLab, garlab.org. If you just look up GarLab, you'll find us. And we're on the social media platforms, the GarLab on Instagram and on all the major platforms there. So if you look up GarLab, you'll find us. There's not that many of them. I think there's just one so far.
Okay.
Until we expand further, like the Big Ten.
So they can get a hold of you and send an email and say, one
shoot me an
time
email.
I...
Yeah, tell us the stories if you know spots from them. If you get a big Gar, we're interested in that. It is, again, a broad spanning effort. And so we want contributions from the general public.
If you catch a Gar in a freak place.
Yeah, let us know.
Okay.
I'm always up for Gar stories.
All right. GarLab.org?
Yep.
GarLab.org? Is that simple?
Yeah, that's simple. There was not a competition for it, Steve.
Yeah. When you did a keyword search on GarLab, it was clean?
Yeah.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
We used to do touch tanks at the hatchery a lot. The most popular fish were always Gar. They really appeal to children. There's something like a very basic level we just love about Gar fish.
Yeah.
And they handle touch tanks super well.
Yeah.
A lot of fish can't handle that stress. Gar can. So they're great for introducing kids to cool prehistoric rough fish.
One of my favorite pictures that I've seen of kids interacting with Gars is one that Spencer took from that hatchery. So I've used that before in outreach activities, but it's like these kids reaching and touching that long-nosed Gar. So I think that's they don't see it as weird. They don't see it as trash.
That's right.
So I think that's hope for the next generation.
Okay. You know what we didn't get into is cleaning them.
Tin snips.
Yeah.
Tin snips is good.
That's one of our books, isn't it, Brody?
Yep. Peeling them and all that.
Pulling their little back straps out.
Yeah. Save the head for us, maybe.
Well, from now on, once we get a jug of formaldehyde,
all right.
that's all I'm gonna do. All right, thanks a lot, man.
All right, thanks for having me.